to come from the bowels of hell.
The Dana Gould Hour.
Jungle worms and swamp rats run around your feet.
I bought a dog that killed the calf that ate the canary. What is truth?
And once again, welcome back.
Howdy! Welcome back. We have a wonderful show today with comedian Matt Braunger, one of the funniest people I know. God damn, Matt makes me laugh. Solid citizen, monster nerd, husband, father, professional comedian, actor. Good Lord, he does it all. Then why isn't he happy? We'll find out today. No, I'm kidding. Matt is a happy guy. He's very happy. In fact, he has a podcast that can help you be happy if you're having a problem. It's called This Might Help, and you'll hear all about it very shortly. Also, Katharine Coldiron is with us again. Katharine is a film critic and cinema scholar who wrote the monograph about Plan 9 from Outer Space that we discussed in the Halloween episode. Today, we're going to talk about Nightmare Alley and Freaks and Vampire Circus. I saw Nightmare Alley, the new version by Guillermo del Toro. I went down a creepy Carnival movie rabbit hole, and I thought there would be no one better to discuss this with than Katharine Coldiron. She is also a husband and a father, a comedian, solid citizen. No, she's her own person, and she's gracefully agreed to come back on the show, and I'm very grateful to her. I discovered an amazing new podcast recently by a guy named Adam Roche, or Roche, R-O-C-H-E, called The Secret History of Hollywood. And this has joined one of my other favorite podcasts, You Must Remember This, by Karina Longworth. These are constants in my automotive listening. Through these two podcasts specifically, and there are others, The Projection Booth is also great. Blank Check is great. But anyway, those two specifically, my knowledge of weird showbiz has increased tenfold. And today, based on stuff I've heard there, and then some research I did on my own, True Tales from Weirdsville is going to discuss one of the sickest romantic triangles in history. This is the story of David O. Selznick, who produced King Kong and Gone with the Wind, the actress Jennifer Jones, and her husband, Robert Walker. And this story is messed up. Trust me. If you enjoy True Tales from Weirdsville, then you will no doubt enjoy The Cinemorph. The Cinemorph is a twice-weekly column that I publish on the new platform Bulletin, and it's basically mini episodes of True Tales from Weirdsville that you have to read to yourself, but they are delivered right to your inbox. Go to danagould.bulletin.com and subscribe. It's free and worth it. And just so you know what I'm up to, Season 2 of Hanging with Dr. Z is up and running. We have an amazing season with guests like Dave Foley, Maria Bamford, Penn Jillette, Weird Al, Hannah Einbinder, David Koechner, Jeff Garlin, Ron Funches, Gary Anthony Williams, Hank Azaria, Bobcat Goldthwait. Hanging with Dr. Z. It's on YouTube. Or go to my website or my Instagram or my Facebook page for links. Or just go to YouTube and search Hanging with Dr. Z, Dr.Z. Speaking of Bobcat Goldthwait, if you haven't seen it yet, might I recommend the film Joyride, streaming now, starring the two of us. The AV Club called it catnip for stand-up comedy nerds. It's got 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. Joyride. Lastly, thank Christ! If you like the show, please consider being a Dana Gould Hour Sky Cadet. Go to danagould.com and sign up for our Patreon. $5 a month gets you extra audio content, video content, and some other junk. We don't have graduated levels. $5 a month, and you get some stuff. Be a Sky Cadet, a simple deal for complicated times. I sincerely appreciate each and every person that contributes to the Patreon. It is how I get the show done. And hey, speaking of having the show done, let's get on to our filthy business.
Tune in, it's a gas. It's the Dana Gould Hour.
Dana Gould Hour. Free and worth it.
It's a winter day, but it's a warm day. It's a beautifully apocalyptically warm February day here in sunny Southern California off the Mulholland Drive view shelf here at Falcons Lair Recording Studios. We are talking thanks to the miracle of Zoom technology that will keep all of us from ever having to meet anyone ever again. Your friend and mine, good friend of the podcast, incredibly funny comedian, gifted actor, and a bass fisherman that would put your dick in the dirt. Matt Braunger is here.
This is the sound of my bass fishing voice.
We're going to talk about hitting them big river pike and muskie. There must be a fishing podcast.
Oh, there's like probably thousands. I mean, I had a friend growing up that would you could talk about fishing. He's just like, oh, yes. You know, like me or you talk about like horror movies. I mean, it's really whatever you're into, but I would just zone out. As soon as he talked about a fishing trip he just took, I'm just like, I am not here. I'm somewhere else. I don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, I do. There are worlds I'm like on Twitter. I know, and I don't really go to Twitter much anymore, outside of like if I think of a joke or something to promote. But I don't. I've removed myself from opinion Twitter and rage Twitter. Yeah. But there's also like film Twitter and Brexit Twitter, and and I'm sure that there's a bunch of fishing podcasts. Yeah, I have to look into that.
The lures and all the various. Yeah.
Oh, fly fishing, salt. Which freshwater, saltwater. Well, what?
Right. Yeah. The various kinds. I mean, hey, I get it. It's very Zen. Very comic, except that deep sea fishing is the literal opposite of Zen.
Yeah, Kat wants to. She loves whales. She wants to take a trip to go see whales.
So, what, to Vegas to see really rich old guys bet a ton of dough on a single hand?
Whales and Ed Hardy shirts, smoking a cigar and drinking a beer at 8:30 in the morning.
Guys that never got past 16 years old emotionally, that are 65.
So many of them in Vegas. So many. But yeah, she always tells me whenever she talks about going out in the ocean, I go,
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
If I was in Jaws, I would have been like, please let it kill me. This boat is making me sick.
Can I just get in the water? Throw some chum in first. Throw some chum in, count to 10, and then just feet first. Right.
That would have been funny. The big scene when the shark swam by the boat the first time, if they all just went, let's fuck with it. And they all just jumped in the water. It won't know what to do.
Well, I wonder if there was a bloated version of the script where like Quint had a crazier friend that he was maybe a little younger and always has like a knife in his belt, never puts his shirt on, and they're just Quint, tell Jack to calm down or whatever.
Yeah, Spike.
Spike. Spike at one point just jumps in and just tries to knife the shark in the eye. Just gets bit in half. Just gets killed so fast.
You're not going to kill that shark. I don't want. I just want to stab it a little.
I want my chance. This is how I want to go.
I'm surprised. If they made it, one, I don't understand how it hasn't been remade. I don't understand that, and how it is that with Sandra Bullock as Brody, Charlize Theron as Quint, and whoever Hooper is, Alfre Woodard is Hooper, but she's dating Sandra Bullock. It would have to be, it would have to look like a commercial for any product. It would have to be like multiracial, one of everything.
Yes. I'm trying to.
The shark would be in a wheelchair. The shark would be handicapped or something.
No, it would be it. Well, they've already done Meg. They've done the super sharks.
Yeah, and Deep Blue Sea.
Right. Yeah. So I honestly think people have brought there's always that executive that's like, why don't we climb Everest? Why don't we remake Jaws? And anytime they bring it to any director, they're just like, I'm not touching this with a 10-foot pole. I know that pictures came up of me and underage girls, and I didn't be working, but even that, I will not do anything because I won't have my name as the guy who tried.
Yeah. See,
you will never top that movie.
My guess is they're only not going to do it because Steven Spielberg would never work for them again.
Yeah, I can see that too.
They would anger him so much that they would just go, because they were I was just reading about the Dino De Laurentiis King Kong remake.
Yeah,
it's the dumbest idea. It's like, let's remake King. It's like, I can understand remaking a movie like the first movie to be remade was in 1896, and it was a remake of a movie made earlier that year.
Funny.
It was Louis Lumiere made a movie called Card Game. It's about a minute long. Guys playing cards and drinking wine. And then Georges Méliès remade the same movie later that year with his brother and his daughter. Same movie.
Oh, that's great.
So it's like we've always had remakes. They've always and the Maltese Falcon, I believe, is a remake. I think really? Bogart Maltese Falcon was made earlier. Okay. I could if only there was a way to find out.
Yeah, shoot.
But then you get but remaking a perfect movie, like King Kong is a perfect movie.
Yeah.
And then,
but the thing with King, it's a weird differential between Jaws and King Kong in the public consciousness, as far as I'm concerned, is that people think King Kong is a joke, and it's because it's he's a big monkey they find, and they put him on a skyscraper, and he hits a couple planes out of the air. And it's like, well, it's a lot deeper than that. And there's a lot of, it is a classic for a lot of reasons. But it is, in the end, a big monkey. It's a big gorilla.
Sure.
Jaws is, there are actual great whites that could be that big. And it's also this thing where let's just be honest, Jaws is a touch more subtle in its way.
Sure.
But I also think, the thing with Jaws is it was such an unexpected, it invented the blockbuster. It was the biggest movie they'd ever even imagined. And it was just printing money. Yeah. And to me, maybe that's why they won't remake it. It's like someone made a trick shot that also killed Hitler. Like someone threw, he did a 3-pointer and it killed a dictator before he drowned a child. And you're like, we can't even, I don't know how we would even attempt that again, because it would be impossible to get, who are we going to get in the room? Mussolini as well, killed 2 dictators with this shot. So, it just did everything they wanted it to.
No, you're right.
Whereas King Kong had never just been seen before. So it's always, and that's why I love
and plus you and I remember when Jaws came out. You and I remember Jaws being new. And
ish. I was still,
by 1976. It was 33 years old.
I was 2, so I don't remember it.
Oh, really? You were 2? Yeah, I keep forgetting.
But it's still.
I keep forgetting. Not everyone's me.
The movie echoed for
I was
at
11.
least 3 years after. I remember people being afraid to go in the water and saying it's like Jaws. Like everyone would say Jaws. Well, I don't want Jaws to get me. And that sticks in my consciousness before I'd even seen the movie.
Here's what was
so collectively huge.
Here's what was big. Summer of 1975.
Okay.
Jaws.
Okay.
The Hustle.
Oh, yeah. Dan McCoy.
Right. And the big hit. There were 2 hits that I remember hearing on the radio all the time that summer. I was 11. Skyrockets in Flight by Starland Vocal Band.
Sure.
And huge radio hit. Squeezebox by The Who. Huge radio hit.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I was 11 and my friends were all 11 and it was like, Mama's got a squeeze box. The titillation of it was, just,
of course, wasn't Skyrockets in Flight, wasn't the song called Afternoon Delight? Though?
Afternoon Delight. Yeah. The song's so big, they gave the band a TV show. They had a summer replacement television show that summer because the song was so successful.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Dude, this is side note, but you just made me remember one of the funniest things to me in musical everything. You said the first line of the chorus and said that was the title of the song.
Right. Sure. Yeah.
I think it's actually called Afternoon Delight. Maybe it's called.
No, it is. It is called Afternoon Delight. It is called Afternoon Delight.
I only say because it's such a random dumb thing, but I always found it funny. The live version of Redemption song that they put out. That's Bob Marley. This hugely popular.
Yeah.
The first line of the song is "Old pirates, yes they rob I." I was sold. And they're like, and Bob Marley's so high, he thinks that's the name of the song. He goes, "This next song called Old Pirates." It's like, no, it isn't, Bob. That's the first line of the song. No, the song's called Redemption. Okay, it's fine. It's fine. You know, I just kind of wonder if like
nobody wanted to correct him.
One of the bassist or the drummer was like, what? That's not okay. I don't care.
Frank Sinatra used to sing something in concert, and he would always go, "This is my favorite song by Mr. Lennon and McCartney."
Harrison wrote it.
Yeah, and no, but just so you know that no one. Should I tell him? Oh, I'm not going to tell him. Do you want to tell him? No, I'm not going to tell him.
I'm not going to tell Frank. I want to work.
Yeah, exactly. No, this is we were talking about King Kong. I was one thing I wanted to go back to. This is not. It was one of the greatest jokes, and it's not my joke. And I'm trying to think of who told it to me. I think it was Bill Malone, a special effects guy. Said, I think that's who it was. He said, so they bring King Kong out of the jungle. They bring him to New York. And they chain him up to this big structure on stage. And they put it on the mark. Kong, eighth wonder of the world. And the show starts, and they open up the curtain, and there's Kong. And then the flashbulbs drive him crazy, and he breaks loose. If he didn't break loose, what was the show?
So good. Yeah, just stare at him.
You kind of open.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy. Say, Bergen.
Yeah. Here's the Andrews sisters singing a new composition they wrote for this occasion called "Aren't You Scared Right Now?" Aren't you scared right now? Yeah. Aren't you worried he's gonna get out and step on everyone? And like, it's like you're just the audience, like, plus, fuck.
Plus, you know, one of the things they do before the elephants go out in the circus, you know, you get the guy with the broom handle. Who had that gig?
Yeah. Nope. Well,
by the way, that didn't make him break loose. It was flashbulbs.
Yep, flashbulbs. Not the asshole stage manager kicking him in the heels. You're on.
How's the house?
No, don't part the curtain. You blow the show. They see one of your fingers. We're fucked.
Well, well, they could have done the Ollie Joe Prater thing. I don't know if you know this. There was a comedian named Ollie Joe Prater who was not afraid of stealing material or carbs. And towards the end of his life, in fact, he was egregious. It was an egregious, like a flagrant egregious thief. He was one of those guys. If you had a joke, he'd like, there's only 2 jokes, and he'd just take your joke.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Is that the guy who would go, if he took your jokes, if you tour, he'd come back and see you and be like, you killed in Houston.
Oh yeah. No, he was just blatant. And awful human being. And in fact, this is so many old comedy references, but when he died, Dr. Gonzo commented, when Ollie Joe died, a bit of us all died with him. But he, towards the end of his life, was so fat that before the show, he would go up on the stage and sit, and then they'd close the curtain, and the MC in the feature would perform outside the curtain, and then they'd introduce Ollie Joe, and they'd part the curtain, and he'd be like Kong.
So,
yes, stop.
And that's, I would hate that. I don't like being on stage until they say my name. I don't want to just stand there in the weird, you know, the ether. You know?
Yeah. I'm the anti-Chappelle. How little can I do?
That's like, you're so immobile that you. Oh God!
I know. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of that unfort. Now, one of the things that I wanted to talk to you is because you had COVID.
I did,
and I wanted to ask what because your story is. I mean, you're healthy, and
I'm good.
You're not so much of an independent thinker that you didn't kill yourself, and we're just a couple of independent thinkers that ask questions.
Sure, I did my own research.
Yeah. Sure. Have you ever noticed that none of the independent thinkers question the other independent thinkers?
No.
Or
anyone who, no matter how fringe, who might agree with them online.
Yeah. Yep. They're all the independent thinkers are. They all have the same thought, and they're all.
And 2, they're dependent. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. They're actually very dependent.
Very dependent.
So you did everything right, and you got it. So it could have been a lot worse, but. If you don't mind, I'm sure you've told it a bunch of times, but the setting the stage. Oh, you have a story for the rest of your life.
I do. Yeah, I mean, it's. I actually haven't told it a ton. It's just, I mean, basically, I got COVID for Christmas. Thanks.
Right. Yeah.
I was in.
And it cost you Christmas.
Yeah, it did. It did. I tested positive Christmas Eve at my the in-laws' house. My wife was there. My baby, my mother, father-in-law, my sister-in-law, her son, my nephew. And nobody else. Was
it home test or?
Yeah, I was having a sore throat that I had for a couple days, and I tested negative the day before. And we were about to go to a Chinese restaurant that's in the neighborhood, my wife's hometown in Mansfield, Massachusetts, and I was like, "I'm telling you,
very familiar with it.
Feel great, yes." And my wife was just like, "You're just run down. Just you tested negative yesterday." And then her dad came out of the bathroom and announced, "I got the shits," and that's a sign. I said to my wife, I was like, "Look, diarrhea is one of the tells." And she was like, "All right,
is
fine."
It?
Yeah. But more for Delta. Delta, actually, I had Omicron. I feel Delta, it sounds far worse. I never lost my smell, taste, never got the shits. But he tested, I tested, he tested negative, I tested positive. And I had an overwhelming sense of guilt because I felt like I brought it to my family and by extension, the rest of the gang. And put a mask on and sat in the living room by myself, and then was like, "I'm gonna go check in a hotel." Christmas Eve, and they got takeout, and I ate in a different room in the house. And then I'm like, "I'm gonna go to this Renaissance Inn or something," and they're like, "No," and I'm like, "Look, let me just take one night." And they're like, "You're coming back in the morning with 3 masks on to open presents." And so I checked in, just abysmal.
And you look to them like, this dude got in a fight with his wife on Christmas Eve and she threw him out.
Just the worst. I mean, I thought it was like, you guys must know I have COVID, right? You must know, because we're just being friendly, but like, that's what I thought. But in the end, yes, they probably just thought my wife kicked me out. I got a ring on. So I go up to the hotel room.
Couldn't put together a bike, moved out.
I got kicked the fuck out. And the next day, I FaceTimed them as they're all waking up, and I'm like, "I think I should probably stay in the home." Like, my throat was just shredded. So they were like, "Oh yeah," and I had a FaceTime Christmas, and they brought me Christmas dinner that night.
Did you feel markedly crappy, or just kind of?
Yeah, I felt beat up. My biggest thing was when my throat hurt really bad, and I was really lightheaded, but I had no energy. Like, I remember, because I would walk outside in the parking lot just to get some fresh air, and then I would go back in the building. I remember at one point, I'm like, "I'll take the stairs." And I was on the second floor, and I walked back up the stairs and was like, "Oh, I got to lay down."
Wow.
And it was just, that's what they say. You just have to drink lots of water and rest.
Right.
So my family left me. They flew home. And then,
because now days, you have to be alone for how long?
Well, I was in there for 6 days. I tested negative twice the last 24-hour period.
Okay, yeah. So how do you do? You're in the hotel.
Days.
You're in the hotel. Mm-hmm. You've got to get COVID tests.
Yeah, I had my friend Justin. They would bring me whatever, and so they had some extras. They're like, "Here, just drop these off." So and they also brought me like, takeout if I needed it.
Right. Okay. So you had a network of people there to help you. Right?
I had a support system. Yeah. I mean, I just was texting with Yasser Lester, who has it now, and he's in a hotel. And I was like, "Do you need anything?" And I'm just like, "Oh, this is the new chain. This is the new thing."
Yeah. Is he out here? Is he out here?
Yeah.
What a drag. Yeah. Such a nice guy. I just met him. What a nice guy.
Oh, he's great. He's great. But yeah. It's it was a bitch, but it was like one of those things where, I mean, I never, here's the thing. I'm vaxxed and I'm boosted. And so I was like, all right, I never really felt in any danger. I was just annoyed and I had trouble sleeping at night sometimes.
Sure.
But, one, you watch for the signs, and there's 2 big signs to watch for that you may need to be hospitalized. One is trouble breathing. Mm-hmm. Other one is heavy confusion, which I have a lot anyway. So I was like, how will I know?
Yeah.
But there was a Pats game between the Pats and the Bills while I was there. And as you know, Mansfield is right next to, right near Gillette Stadium.
Yeah.
And so,
which is in Foxborough, correct?
Yes. So you had Pats fans checking in. You had Bills fans checking in. Everyone in the hotel but me.
But by the way, I knew the stadium was in Foxborough, but I always knew it as Foxborough Stadium.
Okay,
so when you said Gillette Stadium, I was like, wait, did they build a new stadium? Is it? And because Lord knows how many Lord knows how many names it's had since it was Foxborough Stadium.
Oh yeah, of course.
What is the Staples Center now?
Like the Crypto Center, and no one's calling it that. I love that sports announcers are like, we're here at the former Staples Center, and we like no irony. They're like, fuck this.
Yeah, no. Calling it that. Yeah. No. On The Simpsons, we had Vesuvialon Stadium.
Here at the Pornhub Bowl. Yeah. Not going to do it. But
we're here at Dog Fart Stadium.
Butt liquors, like something else.
We're live at Shaved and Asian Stadium for the Super Bowl.
Hold on. I've been told we are calling it SA Stadium. For our family listeners, viewers at home. Everyone had either a Bills or a Pats jersey on, paraphernalia. One dude in the lobby, and I used to go down. This was my one outing. I'd go down with 3 masks on because they had a breakfast they'd lay out. I'd get 2 big cups of coffee and like some oatmeal, and bagel, and I'd just run back up to my room. And I went down there, and everyone's milling around. One guy had a New York Giants blazer on, and I was like, wait. I'm just like, am I seeing this? Like I literally
you started to wonder if you were
heavy confusion. like one guy is got 2 points for Gryffindor.
Are they okay in the snow back there, or are your in-laws okay?
Everyone. Yeah, we did like a FaceTime with this gang. We have these friends in Mansfield. There's a notorious dive bar called the Catman.
The Catman?
The Catman Cafe. That first Mansfield is one of the safest places I've ever been in. It's just a lovely little town. But you go in the Catman, you're like, I think I might get knifed.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just got that feeling.
Sure. I
used to love in my crazier days going out with Kara and being like, we got to get one of the Catman. And she'd be like, no. And I would drag her there. We'd play darts. And then someone younger would be like standing too close to us. And like, he's going to grab a purse. So, anyway, me and her friends, we've been on this trivia group and text chain through the lockdown. And so we call ourselves the Catman Closers as a joke. So we did a
and this is not in any way. What I love is that it is not in any way associated with Peter Criss.
Nope, no. Unless he secretly owns that place.
He would be so happy to know, and then just no, it's not you at all. Oh,
he's like, you mean finally I have a fan club? Nope, sorry, Pete, no dice.
Sorry, Pete.
No, it's so. Anyway, I talked to them, and they're kind of giving all their various stories, and wow. Just even, it was like the day after the big dump, and they were like, well, the plow went by, and now the wall is like 7 feet.
Yeah. My brother I'm from Hopedale, which is a very small town, not far from Mansfield, though.
Yeah.
And I was texting with my brother, Jim, and it was just, he showed me a picture of the front of his house. And what's great is the stuff you don't even expect to see. The Bruins flag flapping in the wind, and he got snowed in, and of course it's a small town, so he knows who was plowing. He's like, fucking Paul Gorelick plowed me in. But my mom had COVID. 87 and about 40 pounds, 87 years old, but fortunately all vaxxed up, so she was tired for when isn't an 87-year-old 40-pound woman tired?
Yeah, it's like how do you tell?
But she's okay. She's okay.
Right.
Something else will kill her.
Thank God.
Yeah. I like to think that somehow she's going to be rent apart by winged serpents. Hey, when it's your time.
Yeah. What happened? Oh, well, my mother passed. What happened? Hugh, the winged serpent. Wow.
Questquaddle.
I didn't know he was still around.
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's still up there in that tower. Still?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, when it's your time, it's your time.
He gets ants in his pants sometimes, flies down, takes a victim every couple weeks.
What are you going to do?
Come on. I love a reference like that like probably everyone listened to your podcast, but we just said it in the cafe. Yeah. One guy. Hey, Joe Dante. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, oh, it's Joe Dante, of course.
Yeah, you know, it's him. Well, isn't that who made that movie? No,
but he would know it.
Yes. Okay, good point. Yeah.
No, it was weird. I was just talking to someone, and we were talking about how Forrest Ackerman is like a universal secret handshake. Like,
yes.
If you know who Forrest Ackerman is, like, oh yeah, go on in. Yeah, sure, go on in.
Yep.
Yeah, you guys. You know who's a giant monster? Well, you know this, but Kirk Hammett is.
Oh yeah,
from Metallica. He has a massive collection of stuff.
Really?
Yeah.
Like your collection, but like
times a million. Yeah. No.
Well, I mean, speaking of times a million, his money is
sure.
Probably,
yeah. You know. Well, I mean, but he has like all the original artwork, Famous Monsters covers, like all of the, and
cool.
Yeah, and Peter Jackson has literally like airplane hangers full of stuff.
Wow. Oh yeah. I've heard that, and Guillermo del Toro's has like a house.
Well, he has I've been to that house. I've been to that house. Yeah, it's like everybody has a man cave, as they call it. He's got a house.
You know, it's funny. The man cave thing is often, it's devoted to beer, sports, and boobs, which is all us guys care about. Guys, fella, get right. High five. By the way,
if we had a podcast called that could be it. We could cha-ching.
Come on. Yeah. My man cave would be monsters. And would be, horror stuff, and but it would
that's mine.
it would probably have a bar in it, let's be honest. But it wouldn't be, this homage when I went to Temecula wine country, country. For my bachelor party, because mine was in my 40s, and we rented this house. Yeah, exactly.
I went to sit and sleep for my.
Went to Build-A-Bear, and real high.
It was a comedian at a joke. It was like one of these guys that really funny. And then they have one joke that's just like a beacon. He goes, I was a building manager at a Build-A-Bear workshop. Of course, this was in the early aughts when people were getting into these bears they couldn't really afford.
No, that's great. Yeah. That's awesome.
So you go to Temecula, you're at your bachelor party at a wine country.
The games room was 100% designed by a gay man based on what he thought straight men like. It was there's an Indiana Jones pinball machine, which good job. Long bar that opened to the pool. Great job. A framed light up painting of James Dean and Bogart shooting pool with flaming balls, and probably Al Capone looking on, made no sense. And then everything in there was just oh, this is what straight boy. And then just these a poster of a chick with big boobs framed or something that. What? Why?
Yeah, just or just the word boobs with an exclamation point in neon.
Yeah, boobs. Sex with women. Just on the wall.
You bet I like it.
I'm into it. Two hands-high-fiving over a round female ass. Yeah, lighted hands that go on and off to make the high-five motion.
This is what men like. This is what real men like.
Men like high-fiving over a female ass. That's a song on it.
This is what real men like.
But yeah, mine would be far more, movie nerdish.
Yeah. During COVID last year, not this year, I had all three girls at the house on Zoom at school.
Okay.
And I couldn't work in the house because it was all, people coming through. So I built an office space in my garage.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, I'll just build it myself. I build it like I put in shelving. I didn't
Right.
There was a bandsaw was not involved, but I put in shelving and I, had a desk and stuff. And I thought I'll just do it myself, save money. And all it cost me was my right shoulder.
Oh, I remember. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I ended up having to have surgery and
Sure. Well, but I will say though,
the cheap pay twice.
I will say
that's what I'm telling you.
Well, there's the cheap, but there's also the guys who are, men have the whole, I think I'll just do it. And that leads to death. Like guys older than 50, quite honestly, fall off houses all the time. And I've heard so many stories of that where someone's just like, they don't take the proper precautions and they're just boop, and then they're gone.
Yep.
And everyone in the family is like, why didn't he just hire someone? Or why didn't he have someone just watch the ladder, hold the ladder? Hey, can someone hold the ladder for dad? But we never want to trouble anyone. So
I remember this is years ago before I was married. So late 90s. And we had a house up by the Hollywood Bowl in Whitley Heights. And it was a huge El Nino year.
Yeah.
So much just gouting rain. And I was home alone, go up on the roof in the middle of a deluge to clean leaves out of the gutters. Because the water was.
Yeah.
And I'm up there. I'm less than a foot from the edge of the house.
Oh.
And I literally stopped myself and I literally went, this is stupid.
Yeah, good.
And I just backed away.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't until that moment where I actually went, yeah, this is literally a disaster in the making. This is this is really bad. Yeah. That's
so I think in terms of you taking on a home improvement thing, not to say you got off easy, but it's kind of like
Well, the other one, boy, I don't know if I've told it on this podcast. This was one of my. It was a giant rain when we used to have rain, and literally our street was a river, and our neighbor friend was pregnant, like 3 houses up. Yeah, and so it was dark. I was like, power out. I'm going to go up and check on Linda, and I'm walking up the street, and I see what I think is a tree limb coming up out of the street, and I follow it. And because there's no street lights, it's dark.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm up to my knee in running water.
Wow.
And I'm looking at this tree limb that's 3 feet in front of me, but it's a power line.
Oh, whoa!
And I just happened to not touch it.
Well, and how did it not conduct to you?
I don't know. Well, I didn't touch it, but I was in the water. Yeah, I was just like so. Power company comes out. There's a big power truck there. Guy sitting in the truck. And I walk down to the driveway and I go, hey, can I ask you a question? And he goes, yeah. I go, I was just out in the street a minute ago. Was I in danger? And the guy goes, do you notice I'm sitting in the truck?
You're about to die, sir.
Yeah. No, that was one of those you got lucky.
Oh. Jeez.
Yeah. What was the last thing you smelled? Me cooking.
There was a sizzle and a pop.
Yeah. Who's making ham? But then how long? So you waited 6 days. You had 2 negative tests.
24 hours apart, 2 negative tests. And the minute I got the second one negative, I booked the next flight out of Boston, which was later that. It was the afternoon sometime. So my mother-in-law picked me up and drove me to the airport. And then I was on the plane for 6 hours on the tarmac for 2 hours after we landed. And then, because something like 80% of the ground crew tested positive. It just decimated. We were, and I like to say, the only thing better than sitting there for 2 hours was the listening to the incessant whining of the woman behind me. I just want to go home out loud. Like she's 7 years old and the rest of us are her parents. And this woman has 20 years on me. Turning to her husband. I just want to get on the 405 and go home. Can I just, I just want to go home. It's like, oh, shut the fuck. I'm deep breathing.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
And by the way, by the way, you say that you describe this person. This is a limited access joke.
Yes.
But you want to go, let me guess, the 405 South.
Or be great to
Yeah.
just turn around. Oh, you don't want to take the 405. 101.
Yeah.
Take the 101. You want to get on Sepulveda.
Yeah, you ever cut the 105? You ever cut the 105?
We never heard. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And then, so 2 hours with a mask on, just dying to claw it off it's been 8 hours. I got this, long in the car up. And then they finally, we get off and we go to baggage claim. And I waited 2 hours for my bag because
there's no ground crew. There's no ground crew.
I mean, I talked to an employee,
and you're like, "Why did I check?"
Who was totally? Well, he was already. Is no way.
Oh, plus you were there with
Christmas
Kara
bag
and the baby.
So much, yeah.
And you had the baby.
And so and in fact, I took more of her stuff so she could fly lighter.
Sure,
without me. But like this employee,
imagine if you had packed the baby and all that time, with one fruit packet. Or seriously, imagine if you had the baby with you. That would have been.
Yeah, that's the thing. I was by myself, and once I've flown by myself with Rose twice, and it was fine. But
but it's
without is
you
like
forget. Like flying by myself. Now it's like that's like a hot tub.
Yeah, I don't have to hold these hand weights out straight in front of me the entire time.
Yeah.
It's so waiting. I had a driver that was that Kara had hired, and the guy just waited with me. And I won't even say how much it ended up costing by the time he got me home. But we just waited, and I almost at one point said, "I'll come back and get it tomorrow," which some employees advised me to do. And I was like, "I'm just going to wait for it." And it went from being frustrated to just being funny. Me and that guy were just laughing. We're like, I can't believe this. So my bag when the bags finally came out, me and this family I'd made friends with, it was like, they've released the hostages. Oh my God. We're like almost hugging, like high-fiving. I've met their kids. I'm like, go get my bag, Russell. And like, and like, he was happy. Because but when it had been
sweatpants held hostage, day 265.
They let them through the baggage claim. So when they finally, I should say, with 45 minutes of waiting, I asked an employee who was hustling by me. That guy was just like, he'd been stopped by everyone. I was like,
sure.
Do you know if the ground crew? He's like, sir, I will tell you, like I've told everyone.
Okay, yeah.
We have lost. And I was like, listen, man, I'm sorry. I get it. You can keep walking. You've answered my question. He's like, I appreciate you. And just kept walking. Even me being nice, he was just like, I will take one of your eyes. You could tell he was so livid. People just being like, excuse me.
Yeah. And airports are one of the few places where the word sir can be said like, sir. It's
sir, like, go fuck yourself.
Yeah. Sir is never said at an airport to imply a position of respect.
One of my favorite
one
of my favorite dumber jokes of mine that is just like a toss off is like when I was a waiter or bartender, no matter how bad someone got in the bar, the most I could say was sir. Like he's puking on his own dick and just screaming. And I'm like, sir, please, sir, if I have to be formal with him, right? Sir, sir, you please stop defecating.
And if it's a woman, it's like she's having diarrhea in her own vomit. Madam, please. Madam, Your Highness.
Duchess. Baroness, please.
Your Highness, please.
Please. My plane landed at 10 p.m. I got home at 3:30 in the morning.
Oh my God.
We have where I am right now actually is my wife's office, and the desk folds down into it's like a fancy hide-a-bed, folds down to a bed. So I folded down. I left a note for my wife. I was like, please don't wake me up too early. And I slept maybe about 4 or 5 hours, but it was fine. And then
it's fine.
Yeah. We found out Rose actually somehow got it. We think maybe on the travel, but it went away. After a couple days, we tested her a few times. My wife had it without knowing it. she did a PCR test that took days and days to get back to us.
Right.
And it was like, you have it. And like the point, like, was a government test that called her.
Yeah.
Like, you have to quarantine. And she's like, I've just done 2 tests since that say negative. So it's gone now. And they were like,
right.
Okay, good. So
because I'm on a show right now, I get tested every
brag. Sorry.
I'm on Too Hot for the Antique Roadshow.
Oh, wait. I went out for that host job. You mean
Stickley Settle? What about
Mantique Roadshow? Where you bid on old white men?
Yeah, the Mantique Roadshow.
Yeah, I mean they finally, I'm
and the show logo is Statler and Waldorf with dollar signs for eyes.
It's a reality show about elderly white slavery. I love it. The only slavery I am in favor of, by the way.
But by the way, they are slaves, but all they do is they do what they're good at. It's just like you just see a porch full of rocking chairs and they're all empty, and the slave master's like, tomorrow they're all gonna be full. They're gonna be rocking, there's gonna be full of people rocking. We got a game of chess for you, Lester.
If you had, honestly, like if you could probably do like Mantique Roadshow, but it's like a Magic Mike show. It's like a strip off, but they're all like Sam Shepard's. Like my mom has has such a boner for Sam Shepard. Like I feel like all boomer women, and my mom's actually technically a couple years too young to be an actual boomer, even though we're all called boomer past 35 now. Right. But true. She'd just be like, who looks good in a pair of jeans? Like, let me guess, Jane, you're gonna say Sam Shepard. That's right.
He never got that tooth fixed.
I mean, if you had all the Sam Shepard, Sam Elliott.
Sam Elliott is a big one. Or Chris Christopherson, I think they must.
Chris, like, oh my God, that's it. That's Mantique Roadshow right there. Just guys that age that look good in jeans.
Yeah, it's the Expendables for aging hippies
that have no body fat.
And it's like David Crosby wants to audition again. No.
Even on coke, he was fat.
Yeah. What did they cut it with?
Butter?
That's an old
crushed Jiffy Pop.
You inadvertently wrote a joke of David Feldman's. That was David Feldman's.
I heard it.
Oh, you did.
I've heard so many of the.
But that was David Feldman. So John Belushi died was a cocaine guy, and he was overweight. What were they cutting that with? Butter? And he would say it, and he would really. I mean, I'm not ragging on David. I love David.
I know.
But his friend Larry Bubbles Brown.
Yeah.
Would butter is to this day is how he says hey. Like he'll say hello, hey, like butter. Like that's how he says. It's like it's lost all meaning now. It's just butter. Yeah, we were gonna go. Kat's family is in Sweden, and we were gonna go to Sweden, and we had this ginormous trip planned.
Oh,
I had to cancel a week out.
Oh,
and if it makes anybody feel happy, I ate a lot of money. and then but I had kids, so scrambled, and we went up to Mammoth. But we go up to Mammoth, and it was like the fucking shining snowstorm. I grew up in Massachusetts. I had never been in a storm like this.
Wow.
Where, driving up, because we were also on the top of the mountain. The first 2 days, we went into the condo. You look at the window, snow.
Oh,
it was just we were under the snow.
Jesus.
And then my daughters opened the window and dug out an extra refrigerator. They just dug out a giant thing.
Oh, that's awesome.
Put stuff in it. Yeah, they're crafty. And then, but no, the first day you couldn't leave the hotel without goggles on. It was just because you're on top of the mountain, so nobody was skiing. Man. Yeah, we skied a little bit the second day. Then finally, on the third day, we got to go. And I realized how, my trip to Sweden got canceled, and then I couldn't even ski. Like, I know what I sound like.
Sure.
Yeah, I know what I sound like. Mm-hmm. So please know that I lost thousands of dollars. Yeah.
And the amount of times, just like everyone, throughout the last 2 years where we've been like, let's just leave the plans until we can't. And then a week before, you're like, they got to go. I mean, I'll never forget sitting on the porch with Kara and her just realizing that her family can't come to her baby shower and she can't have one. And she's sitting there visibly pregnant, and she just started kind of weeping.
Yeah.
And I'll always have that memory where it just broke me. Where I was like, I feel awful because this is the thing you were looking forward to so much.
Sure. Yeah.
And it just, you can't. Not in good conscience. You just can't.
No, I just one of those. I remember taking the train up I was living in Boston and I was working in New York, and I took the train home, and it was in the summer, and the train got, we had to stop for 3 or 4 hours somewhere in Connecticut, and this woman missed her daughter's college graduation. Yeah. And she's sitting there with flowers, just sobbing, and there's nothing you could do. It's just awful.
You guys didn't recreate it? Try to do like a little...
She's still going to be graduated tomorrow.
No, okay. Elmer, you play her daughter.
Yeah. You think you're sad? I'm going to have a hard time going to Sweden. Okay. In the future. No, yeah, it was just, but it was so funny after all that stuff, we were trying to go to Sweden, can't, went go skiing. And I'm not a great skier. So by the time we could go skiing, there was too much snow.
Oh God!
Because everything is moguls,
right?
So it's just, and my daughters are just like, and this is where my daughters let me down.
Oh, this is okay.
I'm good on blues.
Yeah,
I'm good. We start on a black. We start like, hey, I know where this. I know where. Yeah, that's where we started.
Wow.
I'm like, yeah, I can do it. I'm not having any fun. I'm just
bump,
trying not to die.
Bump.
Yeah.
Bump.
Yeah. I'm just trying not to die.
Yeah.
And it was the best part of the trip was when we went home, we finally, all right, we're done. We go home, and we had all my Academy screeners, and I just sat in my house and watched Nightmare Alley on my couch. And it was like, it was the first time in like a week and a half, I was like, this is great. Watching a broken down alcoholic bite the head off a live chicken. Finally, I can relax.
So talk about an uplifting film. It's funny. I just started it today.
Oh, you're kidding.
Like I was getting stuff done all morning, and I'm just like, it's on HBO Max now. I'm going to start watching it at lunch. So I failed you.
By the way, I told you I was going to get you the DVD, and I never did.
I told you it was coming to HBO Max, and it's on Hulu. So
it's great. It's great. No one's leaving the theater whistling.
It's like I remember when I was living in Chicago and Saving Private Ryan came out, and a guy was like, see it during the day. And I was like, okay. And then, of course, me and my then girlfriend were like, fuck that. We like seeing movies at night. And we walked out of that movie to the darkness of a night. We're like, oh, fuck. Oh, Jesus. That man. I remember going to see that movie, and I just assumed it was a war movie. I was like, this is going to be great. I just assumed it was going to be like Tora. Like, hey, Steven Spielberg made a war movie. This is going to be great. Yeah. And then the door of the boat goes down. I'm like, oh. Oh, God. Man, so many incredibly dark, but probably true moments.
Oh, no, I'm sure like not even close to what really some of the real true dark. The craziest World War II story I ever heard was Rod Serling was he and his platoon were literally stranded on an island in the South Pacific. And he did have one of those experiences where he came up around a corner and a Japanese soldier looked at him. The guy pointed the rifle, heard a gunshot, and it was somebody killing the Japanese soldier. It was like right out of a movie. Like, thanks.
Shit, yeah. That moment.
Yeah. And then so they're starving, blah, 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 then they get rescued. They find, and they parachute down a bunch of supplies for them because they've been starving and everything.
Yeah.
And the parachute breaks. Oh. And it lands on a guy and kills him.
Jesus.
Like one of his friends, killed by the rations.
Oh God. I remembered I was telling the story to my mom at that something happened at my grandmother's funeral. I was in college, and I went to Manhattanville College, which was traditionally a Catholic women's college up until the 70s. So my grandmother
in a bosom buddies like scheme to meet women.
Yeah, totally. Decades after they'd already gone co-ed. Wah, wah. I showed up in a dress for no reason.
Yeah.
So my grandmother's generation, every man when they at the funeral found out what college I went to, this old guy, one of my great uncles just kept going, Manhattanville. Because to him, it was like I
college.
Said, whatever, Concordia College for women.
Yeah, Mount Holyoke or something. Yeah,
right. Yes, went to Mount Holyoke in his mind. And my mother was like trying to figure out which one it was, which one of these great uncles. And I was like, well, it wasn't Jack, because because he was shorter, and I remembered. My great uncle Jack looked like a white-haired Dean Martin. Like he had that long face, the big hair, very tall, imposing guy. Really, really nice guy. And him and his platoon after the war were traveling, and they stayed with the actual Von Trapps.
Wow.
They stayed with Maria and the family. And I was like, so did she look like Julie Andrews? She's like, no, it's enormous. A horrible woman. Angry, yelled at us for no reason. We're like, we saved you. We saved you from the Nazis. You're yelling at us at the dinner table. Mean, awful woman. Like, it just shows you how Hollywood will be like, great story. What's that Maria like? Enormous? Angry? Let's cast Julie Andrews and make her sweet and nice. It was such a belly laugh. And he never smiled. He was so mad because he probably saw that movie and was like, screw this. Who is that woman?
That's supposed to be. She yelled.
I remember him responding to me as if I was like, you must have loved her cool and lovely demeanor. As if I challenged him or something. I was like, so what was she like? He's like, horrible, awful woman.
The war was the worst part of the war.
Awful. Like, yeah. I mean, like, what? I will always wonder. I mean, he's long dead, but like, what? I wish I would have asked him, like, what did she say? Like, they're eating, imagine around a big oak table or something, and she's begrudgingly giving them food. And like, what is she? All of you smell. Like, what is she saying to them?
Yeah.
I don't,
You're man. Yeah, your table.
Americans are scum. Like, what? I don't know what she's saying to them.
Yeah. You call that lederhosen? Yeah, and also I can imagine these. Yeah, and these guys are like, how it must have been to come home from that, and suddenly there's like suddenly you're wearing different socks every day. It's just like so bizarre.
And you're around people that take, from your perspective, I'd imagine everything for granted.
Yeah,
every luxury, every meal, a bed, everything, relationships, the fact that the person you're next to will probably be here tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like a million billion things that we take for granted, that you come back from that experience and you're just like, I don't relate to anyone anymore.
It's true. Yeah. Well, and that's why, and then culturally they weren't allowed to talk about it.
Right.
So they just smoked and drank themselves to death.
Yep.
That's that generation.
Like you do. Yeah. Like you do. Matt Dwyer, he wrote an Instagram post today that I really, the second time I mentioned this today, that I dug. He stopped drinking about a year ago, and he was kind of talking about how, like, it really, he not only drank to feel better, all the reasons, but he was literally told as a youth by his grandfather that that's what men do.
Sure.
Drink. And so once he had that, and it's like, feel like collectively in society, that's what we're told as men, that's what you do. You don't have a choice, is you do this, and so it's exactly what else, what they could never talk about their feelings, God forbid. So you go curl up in a bottle or whatnot,
Yeah. When I was busted with my friends for drinking in the woods one freezing cold night in high school.
Been there.
Was told my mother, well, I wasn't even drinking. I was just hanging out with everybody, which was true.
Right.
I was advised, don't tell your father that.
Oh, yeah. Of course.
Yeah.
You think you're gay.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
it's true.
Was the actor that was in, he's been in a million things. He's Welsh. And he was, off the top of my head, he was in Can You Ever Forgive Me? He was her like bar drinking friend.
Oh gosh, I didn't see that.
God, he was, what has he not been in? Christ, the guy was like in LA Story.
Welsh.
Yes. But, or, well, you'd probably consider him English.
Is Richard E. Grant?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
I was just talking about him a minute ago.
Oh yeah. So he I only know this because I listened to an interview he did where he basically has what I think Ron Funches has, where he's basically like allergic to alcohol. Like he takes a sip, he'll like, ugh, he always has.
Oh, does Funches have that?
Yeah, he has a physical thing where he literally cannot drink.
Oh wow, interesting.
Yeah, from what I understand, I've never really talked to Funches. And Funches I've just known as a teetotaler always. He loves weed, but was never a drinker. Never.
Weed and wrestling.
Yes, right, correct. Weed, wrestling, and his wife and child, his three loves. Yeah. His family.
And I think and they're having another baby, or they
are. Yeah, he is having another man.
Good for him.
I almost said another family. He is having another baby.
Good for him. Lovely man.
Yeah, I love Ron. But Richard Grant, he grew up in Wales, and he was just like, I became something of a pariah in a lot of circles.
Sure.
Because I could not imbibe. No matter how much I tried, and I tried a lot of times, I just couldn't. And I was just like, God, it's really that bad in male society where it's like,
oh yeah, and you just did. I just never had the taste for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and it's very bizarre. I was thinking of this. Speaking of like men, when I was too young, my father, when I was a kid, subscribed not to Playboy, not to Penthouse.
Okay, I guess.
Sure.
Hustler is the obvious one.
Sure, that's you nailed it.
Okay, nice.
Yeah,
and not really nice, but okay.
But yeah. I mean, it's literally just like, this is why it came up. It was like, and I had, and we all knew where they were, and I was too young to see that stuff, and
yeah.
And then like later when my friends like all excited because they like found a Playboy out in the woods, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, what's that? Like, what do you mean? What's that? That's her face. Huh.
Yeah.
Why do all women have this so-called face?
I just had Billy Wayne Davis on my podcast, and he was talking about how he was lucky enough to find his dad's Playboys, and that's it.
Well, that's fine. It's much better to be like, 20 questions with Gene Hackman, and not like Phyllis Schlafly's the asshole of the month.
Yeah, and here's a dungeon, and there's two men and a woman. Oh no,
it's all bad.
Please,
it's all bad.
Not good, man. Not good.
Yeah, it's all bad. So we'll talk. So before we go, your podcast is called This Might Help. Tell people who may not be familiar with it what it is.
Oh, it basically is about an hour-long podcast where people call in. And if you're listening, please do 323-763-0228 and leave messages for unqualified advice.
That's
so me
fantastic.
And my guests
what a great idea.
We listen on a lot of podcasts do this, but we never listen to ours in advance. My producer Renee picks out the winners. We only do about 3 an episode, and so we never know what's coming. And it's a lot of fun. And I only have people on who I either know or would enjoy. I never have an expert on. I'll never have a psychiatrist on or anything. It's just like it's based on our life's mistakes, and it's funny. Sure. Like a lot of what we were talking about, a couple of things we were talking about, especially about what's expected of men and in terms of substances, Billy Wayne and I got into, because it's that thing where we're like, we were those idiots on the road. It's like, you're on the road. What? There's so much beer. Who else going to drink it but me? Kind of thing. And
this is the idea of it's 12 degrees. What should we do? Go out into the woods and drink a cold beverage.
Yeah.
It's the dumbest.
It's the dumbest.
Yeah.
The dumbest. And then hurt yourself climbing over a fence as the cops flashlights get closer and closer.
Ugh. So, yeah. Well, the cop that busted us was actually my dad's hunting friend, and he told me, he says, Gouldy, you see square headlights, it's a cop car, screw.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. But you're back, you're healthy, and are you going on the road?
I am. I pushed all my dates to the the end of February. So I'm in Fort Collins, February 25th to 26th. And then from there, I got like a little spring tour that runs through June. All dates at mattbraunger.com/tour.
The podcast is called This Might Help.
Yeah, This Might Help with Matt Braunger.
Yeah, I think anybody who listens to this podcast knows your podcast. And then you do have a special coming out later this year.
I do. Yeah, we taped it in October. The editing's done, and now we're just working on like opening graphics. And I am actually going to be talking to my pal Ben Wise about this little theme song that he did.
Oh, great!
Everything's kind of piecing together. We're not even at the stage where we take it to buyers yet.
Sure,
but it's done. So it's done. It's
a title.
That's all I can say. Yeah, it's called Doug. It's just based on this. A lot of it's based on kind of our relationship and also my kind of evolution into being a husband, being a father, and me meeting a husband. The last story of it involves a guy named Doug who is a husband and a father. It was a terrible example of a man that is a nice little closer. So
this is your Nanette, basically.
Yes, this is my. Yes, when she talks about meeting someone named Nanette who is constantly drunk on vacation.
They're true tales from Weirdsville. Tales from Weirdsville. And they're true.
Can your heart stand the shocking facts?
Louis J. Selznick was a jeweler. He was born in the Ukraine. That's in the news. And he immigrated to America in the early 1900s and set up shop in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He then worked his way to New York, where around 1912, 1913, he found himself talking to a friend of his who was then working for an up-and-coming motion picture studio called Universal Pictures. This is 1912, so Universal Pictures was not what we know today as Universal. It was just a scrappy little startup. But this guy mentioned to Selznick that Universal had basically split into 3 separate factions, and that the factions really didn't speak to each other. So Louis Selznick sent a letter to each faction saying that Louis Selznick has just been appointed the new general manager of Universal Pictures. No one challenged it because each faction assumed the other group had made the decision, and he ended up staying there as general manager for a good chunk of time. Eventually, he formed his own company called Selznick Pictures, and this would, over time, more or less, be bought out and folded into Paramount Pictures. At Selznick Pictures, Louis would eventually hire his son David as his assistant. David Selznick, he added the O, which stood for nothing, later in life to differentiate himself from a relative. David O. Selznick, as he would come to be known, was a hard-charging mover and shaker. After leaving Selznick Pictures, he moved to LA and worked at MGM. Then he went to Paramount. Then he went to RKO Pictures, where he became that studio's executive producer, which today we would call the head of production. He was 29 years old. At RKO, Selznick would give the world King Kong and discover and develop the career of the young Katharine Hepburn. From there, he went back to MGM, where he had his own production unit. He had something else at MGM, his father-in-law. In 1930, David O. Selznick married Irene Mayer, the daughter of Hollywood legend Louis B. Mayer, as in Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer. And you would think that, with one of the most powerful men in Hollywood as his father-in-law, that Selznick would go out of his way to be a loving, respectful, model husband. No. In fact, before they were married, he was dating Irene Mayer while also dating actress Jean Arthur. And while he wasn't what you would call a great husband, he was without a doubt a great producer. At MGM, he discovered Swedish actress Ingrid Bergman. He brought director Alfred Hitchcock over to America from England and produced the most profitable film of all time, Gone with the Wind. How could one man do all of those things, you may wonder? It's easy. Talent, drive, and drugs. David O. Selznick was a Benzedrine enthusiast. Benzedrine is an amphetamine that he would gobble with frequency and exuberance. An article on History.com quoted Gone with the Wind actress Evelyn Keyes as saying, Selznick would crush up a Benny in the palm of his hand and lick it off grain by grain. And what would David O. Selznick do while gacked out to his eyeballs? Well, among other things, he would pace the floors of his office at all hours and dictate memos to an around-the-clock shift of secretaries. These weren't brief memos or short letters with questions or notes. These were 10, 20, 30, 40-page, single-spaced, rambling screeds that taunted, bullied, and condescended. You may slowly be getting the picture. David O. Selznick, like so many of the original studio heads from Hollywood's golden age, was out of his goddamn mind. He is described in Neil Gabler's book, An Empire of Their Own, as a bearish hedonist with the appetites and discipline of a child. Nowhere is this more clearly illustrated than in Selznick's tormented relationship with Alfred Hitchcock. Hitchcock was the most successful director in England, the king of British cinema, but was still untested in America. Selznick eyed Hitchcock's talent and brought him over to direct the film Rebecca. Now, considering the fact that Hitchcock rose to fame on his own talent, you would think that Selznick would have some respect for his decision-making. But the British director and soon-to-be cinema legend immediately came face-to-face with a deluge of inch-thick, rambling Selznick memos that countermanded even Hitchcock's most minor decisions. One memo, sent after Selznick read the first draft of the screenplay for Rebecca, began as follows. Dear Hitch, it is my unfortunate and distressing task to tell you that I am shocked and disappointed beyond words by the treatment of Rebecca. I regard it as a distorted and vulgarized version of a proven successful work. And on and on and on and on it goes, ending with, I personally don't think you could get Olivier or any good actor to play this role, as indicated in the treatment. The character has no charm, no mystery, no romance. It is my regretful conclusion that we should immediately start on a new treatment, probably with a new writing setup. Hitchcock made Rebecca anyway, more or less the way he wanted, with Laurence Olivier, and it was a massive hit. And Selznick never forgave him for it. In 1979, Alfred Hitchcock was honored with a Life Achievement Award by the American Film Institute. Among his opening remarks was the joke, "When I came to America to direct Rebecca, David O. Selznick sent me a memo. I've just finished reading it. I think I may turn it into a motion picture. I plan to call it The Longest Story Ever Told." Alfred Hitchcock and David O. Selznick were temperamentally polar opposites, but they were both brilliant in their own way. Despite a long and binding contract, Selznick preferred to make money off Hitchcock by loaning him out to other studios so he wouldn't have to deal with him. Selznick, of course, took a fee for allowing Hitchcock to go to work for other producers. In fact, they only made 4 films together: Rebecca, Spellbound, Notorious, and The Paradine Case. 3 years after their last movie together, Hitchcock made Strangers on a Train. Strangers on a Train starred Farley Granger and Robert Walker. Robert Walker was a dark, haunted dude whose life would be destroyed by David O. Selznick. Robert Walker had a very troubled childhood. He was raised a Mormon, grew up in Utah, and yet his parents got divorced when he was very young. He was a physically big kid, bigger than his peers, and he had a nasty chronic case of cystic acne. He felt like a monster, and he acted like one. He became a self-confessed bully, an aspect of his personality that he actively loathed despite succumbing to it constantly. As he got older, he discovered acting and attended the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in New York. There, he met a young actress named Phyllis Isley. Now, Phyllis and Robert both worked, but neither one of them had hit the big time by any stretch. By 1942, they were married, they had 2 sons, and Phyllis then got an audition for a play in Chicago called Claudia. She didn't get the part, but she caught the attention of David O. Selznick, who had bought the play to make a movie out of it. Even though she didn't get the part in the play, Selznick signed her to a 7-year contract. Selznick began working with Phyllis Walker. Like Rasputin worked with Trilby, he changed her name to Jennifer Jones and eventually helped her win the lead role in the film The Song of Bernadette. Now, David Selznick did not produce Song of Bernadette. It wasn't at his studio. It was produced by his brother-in-law, and he worked him, but Phyllis still had to win the part, which she did, of course, under the name Jennifer Jones. And this was her first big movie. And not only was it a hit, she got nominated for Best Actress. Now, by this time, Jennifer Jones and David O. Selznick were having a quite open affair. Selznick, of course, was still married to Louis B. Mayer's daughter, Irene. You might recall, he also worked for Louis B. Mayer. Oh yeah, here's another thing. At the very same time all this was going on, Robert Walker, whose career was also heating up, and Jennifer Jones were starring in a movie together, where they had love scenes. They had to perform these love scenes in front of the film's producer, David O. Selznick, who made a special point to be on set those days. David O. Selznick made a guy whose wife he was sleeping with kiss her on camera over and over again in front of him until he told the director he was satisfied with the performance. He was basically the guy's boss, and he was having an affair with his wife, and he was also technically her boss, while being married to a woman whose father was his boss. By the night of the Academy Awards, Robert Walker was in pretty bad shape. He was a dark dude to begin with, and losing his wife to his boss was too much to take. That night, Jennifer Jones attended the ceremony without her husband, who was home with their children. He heard her win the Best Actress award, listening on the radio. She filed for divorce the very next day. It would be safe to assume that David O. Selznick filed for divorce the very next day as well. Yeah, didn't happen. According to Karina Longworth, Jennifer Jones was an incredibly fragile, nervous woman. An amazing actress, but a wreck at the trappings of being a star. She hated doing interviews, hated getting her picture taken. The press painted her as a cold-hearted homewrecker, and with David O. Selznick refusing to leave his wife, she felt left out in the open and unprotected. In fact, Selznick used this fragility to his advantage. At one point, purportedly, he implored his wife not to leave him because if she did, he'd have to marry Jones. What the... Hey. David O. Selznick and Irene Mayer finally divorced the following year in 1946. As you can imagine, that didn't go over well with his boss, Irene's father, Louis B. Mayer. Selznick's gambling addiction took off. This was powered by his Benzedrine addiction, but that's the kind of trouble that a sex addiction will get you into. Over the course of the next year, he lost hundreds of thousands of dollars gambling. But at least he was free to finally marry Jennifer Jones, who left her family for him. But he didn't. So Jones, cracking up under the stress of her personal life and emotionally drained from a tasking performance in the film Duel in the Sun, produced by David O. Selznick, Jennifer Jones tried a clumsy attempt at suicide that failed. Selznick and Jones were finally married in 1949. The same year, Robert Walker checked himself into a psychiatric clinic for a disorder that was at the time called melancholia, and seems to be, basically, clinical depression. It is said that he never recovered emotionally from the end of his marriage, but the stay in the clinic helped, and he seemed to be getting his life back in order. 2 years later, in 1951, he would have his most famous role as the psychopathic killer in Alfred Hitchcock's Strangers on a Train.
Two fellows meet accidentally, like you and me. No connection between them at all. Never saw each other before. Each one has somebody that he'd like to get rid of. So, they swap murders.
The joy was short-lived. Later that same year, suffering a new bout of depression, he grew distraught and began drinking. His maid called a doctor who prescribed a sedative called amobarbital. The drug interacted with the alcohol in his system, and Walker stopped breathing and died. He was 33. Jennifer Jones remained married to David O. Selznick for the rest of his life, which ended when, after years of smoking and gobbling amphetamines, his heart finally gave way at the age of 63. Jones struggled with her mental health as well. In 1967, she had another failed suicide attempt. In 1976, she lost her daughter to suicide and became, for the rest of her life, a mental health advocate. Her last film appearance was in The Towering Inferno, and she died at her home in Malibu in 2009 at the age of 90. Her son, with Robert Walker Jr., became a successful actor in his own right and will be known to fans of Star Trek's original series as Charlie X. Anyway.
Is equally understood. Go out and try your luck. You may be Donald Duck. Hooray for Hollywood.
And now, on with the show.
It is a beautiful sunny, I guess it's late midwinter morning. Here high atop the Mulholland Drive view shelf here in sunny Southern California at Falcon's Lair Recording Studios. And we're talking to an old favorite, an old pal of the podcast, also drinking from the same coffee cup as I am, ember proudly foisted. Katharine Coldiron is here. She's the author of the Midnight Movie Monograph on Plan 9 from Outer Space. She knows more about cult movies than I do, and as do many people. But it's always a pleasure to talk to her, learn from her, and then take credit for the knowledge she's given me.
I mean, you're not the only one.
No, I'm sure. But see, when I know it, it comes from a guy, and that means it's better.
Well, thank you for having me, Dana, and I appreciate that lovely introduction. number of podcasts that I have been on in the last couple of months is like I've recorded a lot more for this book than I did for my first book. But this book, it's all men. Like all the podcasts, that one of them has had a woman co-host, and the rest of them are all men.
Was that woman co-host Amy Nicholson?
No, it was the Monster Movie Happy Hour.
Oh, okay.
Which is a cocktails and monster movies podcast, and it's co-hosted by 3 historians, one of whom is female.
When you go to Monster Palooza, or it's a lot of dudes.
Mm-hmm.
It's not exclusively, but it's largely a sausage party. And there's the 2 schools of monster kid that you can see where at 13, one of them got into heavy metal and the other one just stayed a movie nerd.
Uh-huh.
Yep. But they have the same loves, but radically different looks.
Mm-hmm. That's completely true.
Yeah. All the metal guys look like Steven Tyler, and all the movie guys look like Stephen King.
I would add 50 pounds to each of them, but yes.
Well, I was doing the 70-pound Stephen King, the 70s okay. Stephen King.
Gotcha. Right. Yes. Before he discovered cocaine.
Pre-van Stephen King.
This is not to say that I don't like talking with dudes on podcasts. It's fine. It's just like, usually they have this moment in the middle of the podcast where they're like, hey, she's funny. Like we like her, I guess. Yeah, I kind of know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's a dude-centric thing. What movie podcasts? Now we're talking for a reason today, but what movie podcasts do you listen to, if any?
This is my answer is really unfortunate. I don't listen to podcasts that much.
Oh, okay.
I love being on them, but when I was commuting from the Northwest Valley to Encino, I had lots of time, so I listened to podcasts all the time, just nonstop. My favorite one then was the Star Wars Minute, which is a minute-by-minute breakdown of every Star Wars movie.
Oh, that's yeah. That's great.
It was such a pleasure. It was like this.
Did they spend an hour talking about each minute?
Well, they spend 20 minutes or so talk, and the length of the episodes varies a lot because it's some minutes are fuller than others.
Right.
But I just loved how thoroughly they got into everything I've always wanted to get into about Star Wars.
It's the only way you can get a complete podcast about Porkins.
I mean, they did talk about Porkins a lot.
I'm sure.
Like they talked about, they put out this T-shirt that had like little cartoon images of all of the obscure characters that they talked about, like Torrin Farr and Paul Treatham and like the Gonk Droid and Treadwell and like all of these.
I love the Gonk Droid.
My husband loves him too. My husband works. He actually is working on a Star Wars video game right now. And,
that's great.
It's his favorite is the Gonk Droid, and I keep trying to find
the Tor Johnson of droids.
Yes. I keep trying to find a cross stitch pattern for a Gonk Droid to make for him, and I can't. The point is, that was the podcast I loved the most. But now, because I don't have a commute and I don't really have the opportunity to sit and listen to things so much,
right? Yeah.
I just don't listen to podcasts that much.
No, that's it. I've discovered this one called "The Secret History of Hollywood," which is done by this British guy, Adam Roche, or Adam Roche, however he pronounces his name. And I love, you must remember this podcast with Karina Longworth. This is, it's like that, but such a deep dive. Like it's a 9-part, 16-hour Val Lewton deep dive. Like,
yay.
Yeah, no, like it's and they'll talk about like, and his aunt was a famous actress and you learn all about her. Mm-hmm. And at one point he buys a light bulb and you learn all about that. I mean, it's just, this guy
great.
Is, it's, and I'm currently listening to the one about the history of the Warner Brothers. It's just great. Like it's
Jack Warner's one of my favorite characters from classical Hollywood because he's like, what a bastard, but what he gave us.
They're all sociopaths. And
true,
Sam and the story of Sam's wife, Lena, it's great though, because it helps you get through today.
Mhm.
Because what you realize is people have always sucked, and great people have always sucked greatly.
Yes, that's completely correct. Yes.
Yeah. It's like, oh no, people were always monsters.
I used to have this theory that the greater the gift to humanity, the greater the dark side. Like, if you're going to accomplish a whole lot, then you're also going to be like the worst person in the world.
Yeah.
And just how you present that is, and I don't know if that's true. I think there are probably true saints out there like Jimmy Stewart, but I don't know. I think
Fred Rogers.
I think there's something. Yeah. I mean, I think there's something to that sort of vice and virtue vying for.
Well, I've always said that the same brain that makes the good makes the bad. So if it makes really potent good, it's going to make really potent bad.
Yeah.
It's really, it's possibly true. And which almost brings us to the topic that I wanted to broach today. I watched the new Nightmare Alley, and I went down a Carnival movie rabbit hole. And the guy who wrote Nightmare Alley, the book, I should have had that handy. What's his name?
I have it handy. It's William Lindsay Gresham.
Yeah, William Lindsay Gresham. He was another guy, like brilliant guy, haunted dude.
Mm-hmm.
Super haunted dude. But he gave us this amazing story and clearly had a moral compass, as evidenced by the story he wrote.
Mm-hmm.
But just a tortured soul, a tortured soul.
Yeah.
Alcoholic, a brutal alcoholic, and incapable of forming lasting relationships.
Yeah. And I mean, it sounded to me as if he kind of never conquered his demons in a way that, he died by suicide when he was 53.
Right. That's a symptom right there of never conquering your demons.
Yes, but that's what I mean. I feel like there was just a point where it built up and he couldn't take it anymore, as opposed to, having a temporary setback. It was more just over the years. There was, I read about him, and I read the book. I read Nightmare Alley, and I knew about the C.S. Lewis connection and, all of this stuff, but I'm really dying to know why you wanted to talk to me about Nightmare Alley. Because I also did a binge on Carnival movies for this podcast.
Yeah, well, not just Nightmare Alley, but the I love the idea. I mean, obviously, I'm amazed that Nightmare Alley get made as a remake, and I love the idea of the Carnival of a sideshow as a microcosm for society, which we've seen not only probably never done better than in Geek Love, the book by Katherine Dunn. And but it is such a strain in cult moviedom, starting from, Freaks wasn't the first, but it's the Citizen Kane of them.
Yes.
Going through, and that the people who created, there's a certain draw. I mean, Todd Browning is another example. There's a darkness, there's an obsession that the people who truck, another book by Katherine Dunn, the truck in this genre have. Did you see the Guillermo del Toro Nightmare Alley?
I did. I watched both Nightmare Alleys. I watched Vampire Circus.
The underrated Vampire Circus.
I watched Carney. I watched La Strada. I watched Water for Elephants. Thanks a lot for that.
Yeah. I didn't tell you to watch that one.
and I watched The Greatest Showman.
Yeah.
And I read, and I rewatched Freaks because I hadn't seen it since I was young.
Right.
And I read Nightmare Alley. And I also
by the way, let me just say, you've done far too much research.
I want to know what I'm saying.
Katherine, you're going to come back on this podcast, but I'm going to tell you right now, don't ever do that again.
Come on. on. I watched 9 circus movies in a week, and I don't think that's too much research.
Our motto here is free and worth it. Remember that.
I mean, the thing that I kept thinking about was the kind of the circus scenes in other movies. Like the main one that I was thinking about was in Strangers on a Train, which is the carnival where the woman gets murdered,
right?
And and then eventually he gets caught, and there's that. And then I watched Bob's Burgers too much, and so I was thinking about how Wonder Wharf is always like right there, and it's kind of part of their lives in this interesting way.
Yes, yeah, Wonder Wharf. What a beautiful name.
Yeah. Oh, it's wonderful. And,
but can I say one thing? Can I interject one thing about Strangers on a Train? Merry-go-rounds don't go 90 miles an hour.
No, they don't.
It's not like if you take your hand off the brake, the thing goes up to 60.
No. I agree with that. And I also find
that's a huge buy in that movie.
But I think that it was Hitchcock being funny. I think that the whole point of this was at the end, just the way that he shows the horses and their teeth and the scariness of pointing at the camera and children screaming. And, Hitchcock has no love for children. So the fact that the children are unhappy is like, this is supposed to be funny.
Yeah.
But you're right.
Another prime example of the brain, the same brain making the good, making the bad.
Yes. Well,
ask Tippi Hedren.
Yes. The other thing that I was thinking about, too, is a concept that I very poorly understood when I was in grad school. When I was studying theory, they had us study the theory of the carnival-esque as advanced by Mikhail Bakhtin. And it was one of those things where, like, we studied one theory a week or something.
Uh-huh.
And for this week, I was just like, I don't understand, so I'm going to skip it. I'm just going to miss that essay on the exam, whatever. Because I think Bakhtin was trying to say something about how the carnivalesque is a way for writers to put absurdity of life into dramatic stories. And I think that's what Strangers on a Train is doing. But I'm looking forward to someone who listens to your podcast correcting me on this, because I never quite understood the carnivalesque.
It will be a dude, and it will start with the word actually. That's all I can tell you.
Actually, you don't know anything about Mikhail Bakhtin?
We must have talked about this last time. I'm in the movie I Woke Up Early the Day I Died, which is...
You are not. You are not in that movie.
I am in that movie.
Oh!
I'm the reason Mila Nurmi is in that movie.
That's amazing, Dana.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It's one of my most proud accomplishments. And it's in have you ever seen it?
I have not seen it.
Yeah. It's hard to see, I think.
Well, at the time I heard about it, I was still sort of invested in watching movies legally.
Sure.
And it's not available legally.
I know I have it. For those of you who don't know, I Woke Up Early the Day I Died was made in 1997 or 1998. It was based on an outline of a movie written by Ed Wood. It was not a script, but it was an outline that Ed Wood wrote. So they made it as a silent movie. There's no dialogue. There's sound effects in the movie, but there's no dialogue. And
the cast is wild.
The cast is insane. And it was directed by Aris Opoulos, and I'm mispronouncing his name, and I think he was Fellini's DP for a while. And it stars Billy Zane, and I'm in it too. And I'm in the carnival. There's a carnival scene.
Okay.
There's a big carnival chunk, and I play a carnival barker. And but I made up in like Joel Grey cabaret whiteface kind of thing. And and the whole carnival looks like that. And I think that part of the appeal of that for filmmakers is that you do get that, for lack of a better term, Fellini-esque. You get to see the beautiful and grotesque when they are the same.
Mm-hmm. I think that's right. There's also a sense, I mean, as I watched all these carnival movies, I was trying to see what they had in common. And one thing that kept coming up over and over was family. The sense of the circus people being a family. And sometimes they're a family of freaks who are all together and yay, we're all freaks. And sometimes they're like, a very dysfunctional family.
Well,
and along with that is the con, the grift. Like, it's a family, but it's a family of con men. And like the level of the grift being okay with people's values hugely depends on the movie.
Do tell.
Like in La Strada, there's sort of not a lot of grifting going on. In Nightmare Alley, the whole thing is about the grift.
Right.
In Carney,
the Gary Busey film?
Gary Busey,
Jodie Foster,
and Robbie Robertson, who
Robertson.
Like, Robbie Robertson is actually second lead in that movie.
How is Tom Waits not in that movie?
I know. I mean, I think Gary Busey's playing the Tom Waits part.
Yeah. Or as we call him, Gary Drug Abusey.
Yes. Yes. I mean, it's actually, it seemed to me as if he and Jodie Foster, they didn't have chemistry exactly, but they seemed to have a good working rapport.
Yeah.
Like, they looked like they were acting opposite each other very well.
Well, I think he was I mean, that was right around Buddy Holly. Like, he wasn't always a train wreck.
Yes.
Or he was a train wreck off hours.
But yeah, so Robbie Robertson, very talented in many ways. He was not good in this.
Mm-hmm.
But it was also kind of dirty little movie. But the point I'm trying to make is that movie doesn't have the family thing so much as it has layers of grift and deception and harm in it. And like the mafia is mixed up in that movie.
Oh God, I haven't seen it. That's like 79, 70.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was made in 78, 79, and then it was released in 1980.
Yeah. I'd have to watch that one again.
You can pass.
The idea of the grift is so strong, and in Nightmare Alley, the whole story is about a grift, but then you get to, when that movie was made, originally in 46, 47? 7. And it's right when I think smart people were realizing, it's when I think it's film noir sort of started to introduce the concept into pop culture, that the whole thing is a grift, that America is a big grift. And that's why it's interesting in Nightmare Alley how he goes from being a corrupt carnival worker to this very corrupt, very wealthy, powerful guy. And there's no moral disparity between what the judge has done and what he is doing. It's just like,
yeah, I mean,
everybody's dirty.
Yes. I mean, certainly that's true. In the book, it's even more true.
Right.
Because when I saw that this film was classified as a film noir, I was like, I'm not sure about that. Just because for me, noir immediately means there's going to be a detective. There's like a crime and a detective or a cop or both. And to have a noir story that's not wrapped up with murder is kind of funky for me. Del Toro's movie is much closer to a noir in my view, even though 47 was exactly the right time to make a noir.
Right.
I still felt like this was a circus movie with some noiry touches, but it just didn't feel that way to me.
Well, is murder and detectives a noir requirement?
No.
And I ask that, more than I do.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to say no in a strict sense. However, for me, it is. Like, I have a hard time thinking of it as a noir if it's not tied up with murder and somehow crimes in the law. It's just, I feel like Nightmare Alley is kind of out there in the solar system as a noir, as opposed to like
a drifter.
Mm-hmm.
Who becomes a grifter. He just changes one consonant.
He does.
There's other people would say one of there's shadow play, and it is a tragic story about the American underbelly.
Mm-hmm.
So it has that. Mm-hmm. And it's it's a noir in the sense that it's a dark tale.
Yes, I think that's right.
The Grifters is another example of a noir.
And the definition of noir is not straightforward.
Yeah, it's fluid.
When I was in college, people were still considering it more like a group of films as opposed to a genre. But since then, that's 20 years ago. So since then, noir has become a genre in critical circles. And like the definition of neo-noir is always shifting around. So I can see it. I just kind of am like, that's not what I think of it as. As I was watching it, I was reminded more of Freaks, which is not a noir, than I was reminded of The Big Sleep or Kiss Me Deadly.
Yeah. I mean, Nightmare Alley actually has more in common with the Grifters than anything else. It is a story of a con man and his comeuppance. What is interesting is they talk about the thing that is his downfall is that he begins to believe that he actually is like that he can do it. You know, that's the flaw of the lead, and and I don't know how this fits into the story, but it's the thing about Nightmare Alley that is so compelling is the threat of the geek.
Yes.
And that the punishment is you really do become something less than fully human. Like there's no rung below the geek.
Correct. Yes.
You know, like that's the bottom. That's welcome to rock bottom. And in the Tyrone Power version, crazy fact about Tyrone Power, that's his real name.
I know that.
Tyrone Power. If only I had Tyrone Power, what I could do with it. And the Daryl Zanuck made them tack on a happy. I know you know this.
No, I didn't know it as soon as I watched the movie, and you know she comes running out of the shadows, and she's like, "I can redeem you." I'm like, "Oh, come on, that is such a studio ending."
Yeah,
I know this is not how the book ended.
Yeah, it's the same. A movie that I was reading about, the original Invasion of the Body Snatchers, also had a tacked on ending. It's so funny where it originally ended with Kevin McCarthy screaming, running into traffic, going, "You're next, you're next, you're next." And then they cut to, he's in the hospital. They realize his story is true. One of these trucks overturned, and they're finally going to stop the alien invasion because they call the FBI.
Oh, yeah.
Who better to call to fight off faceless conformity than the FBI?
Oh, my God. Oh, sigh. Yeah. The thing that interested me is neither movie went as far as the book in depravity.
Yeah.
Did you read the book? Because I cannot tell you this if you don't want me to.
No, you can. I read the book a while ago, but please go ahead.
So yeah, the way that he enlists Molly to his little girlfriend to take down the big cheese by making her pretend to be the girlfriend who died of a botched abortion.
Right.
In the book, that goes on for a lot longer, and eventually she has sex with him, with the big cheese.
Oh, wow, I forgot about that.
And only after that is she like, "I can't do this anymore." And like, "Of course you can't do this anymore. This is horrible.
There's
your
nothing more to do."
It's like pimping you. This is awful. And she's, just a girl, like not much of a grifter.
And he wrote another book about carnivals. It was a nonfiction book.
Yeah.
Monster
my
Midway. He wrote a book called Monster Midway, an uninhibited look at the glittering world of the carny. It was made in 1954. This is Walter Lindsay Gresham. And he also wrote a book about Houdini. Like he knew where his interests lied. And it is a great, I mean, you talk about Ed Wood, the sweetest, one of the many sweet moments in the biography of Ed Wood is when Patricia Arquette says, I'm paraphrasing, like, Ed doesn't judge people. If he did, he wouldn't have any friends. But that's beautiful. And that's the other thing about the carnival is that anybody who wanders in, we can find a place for you.
Right. Yes.
And that's another good carnival movie that has that theory is Big Fish.
Oh yeah. Yes. And Big Fish is also about family.
Yeah. The underrated Big Fish. It's not underrated, underappreciated.
Yeah. I think it's Burton's best movie myself. I am not shared in that opinion by many people, but I really do.
It's up there. I will hold out that Ed Wood is his.
I was, my husband and I were talking about, well, I was really talking at him about this, about the remake.
Oh, you are married.
Well, yeah. I mean, and he's introverted and stoic. So a lot of our relationship is me talking to him. And anyway, we were talking about the remake of West Side Story. And I said that I did not believe that movie would ever have been made if Spielberg had not signed on it. And he said, "Oh no, you don't think so?" And I was like, "No, I think there would have been a ginormous outcry from everyone in the world if anybody except him, because he's probably the most highly approved by the public director. And if anybody else had even tried, they would have been like, this is a travesty." And perhaps not rightfully so, because the original West Side Story isn't one of my favorite movies, but it makes sense to me that only he could have made it. In the same way, I'm sure that when producers sat around and looked at Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes, they were like, "Oh, fuck yeah, this is going to be great." And like, no, it's not. It's not great. Yeah. But back to Freaks. I also I rewatched the X-Files episode that takes place in a carnival town. That episode and Freaks, I think, have a lot more in common than anything in between 1932 and 1990, whatever. Because, and one of the things that episode posits is that if we lose genetic abnormalities, we lose a big part of what makes us human. If we lose the freaks, we lose something important about ourselves. And I don't think that Nightmare Alley is really about that. I think it's much more about grift than it is about abnormality. But
that's true. That is certainly the different. The X-Files episode we're talking about is Humbug.
And I remembered this scene from the time that I, watched the X-Files. Of course it was.
I'm sorry, go ahead. No, I was just saying, I'm looking at it. I'm looking at the Humbug specs, and of course, it was written by Darren Morgan.
Of course, it was. Yes,
who writes 100% of the good episodes.
I mean, Vince Gilligan wrote a couple of good ones too, but yes, Darren Morgan is the best X-Files writer.
The actor that I was thinking of is Vincent Schiavelli.
Oh, him. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Who was also in another, also in. I believe he's in Batman Returns as part of the Red Triangle Circus gang.
You're probably right. That guy bounced around between, different categories of character acting, it seems like, in a couple of decades.
Right. So there's no Ricky Jay in that. I was mistaken.
There's a scene right at the end where I think it's the blockhead is saying, eventually we'll all look like him. And he gestures, and Mulder is standing there in a male model pose with one leg up, like looking like some kind of Greek, not a Greek god, more like a Mark Trail god. But it's so thoughtful to say, do we really want everybody to look the same? Do we really want everybody to be at a genetic peak? Is it more accurate to say that we want some outsiders for a variety of reasons, both good and bad? Because there's always going to be an element where, normies want to compare themselves to these people and feel better about themselves. But there's also an element of, you can be belonged and loved everywhere.
Right.
No matter who you are.
Yeah. Well, that's the real conundrum of Freaks, because on the one hand, it is a sympathetic portrayal of these people who are all suffering genetic anomalies. And in the movie, in the story, the villains, the evil people, are beautiful. It's the weightlifter and the ballerina or whatever she is.
Trapeze artist, I think.
Trapeze artist, right. And she's a horse in the book. The book is called Spurs. She's a rider, and then at the end she ends up being ridden. And so on one hand, the beautiful people in Freaks are the villains. The people suffering genetic anomalies are the heroes, and they're in this beautiful sort of like Eden until the beautiful people come in. But it's called Freaks. They live in a freak show.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's called. And the punishment for the beautiful woman at the end is she is turned into one of them.
Yes.
So how can that be a punishment if they're actually the beautiful people? And Todd Browning, also a famous loony sadist guy who was one of the, the whole thing about they shoot horses, don't they? Dance marathons.
Yeah.
Which were exercises in brutality and sadomasochism. And he was an avid fan.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I did not think that dance marathons were a real thing.
Yeah, no, they were.
Sure. I know. I was astonished by that. It's not a punishment for the freaks. It's a punishment for her.
Right.
I mean, that's kind of the essence of it, is that it's turning her into one of them is punishing her because she is accustomed to being one of the beautiful people. It's the same way as you want rich people to lose all their money because you want them to suffer that, not because you want them to gain integrity, which they probably will.
Right.
But I also want to point out that at this time in American history, eugenics was like a thing, and it was on the rise in popularity. And so this film kind of spat in the face of that. Of these people should be allowed to live, should be allowed to live and love and have careers and have lives, which is important also in 2022.
Sure. If you look at a carnival sideshow from the 20s of the tattooed guy, the fat lady, it's like, that's the line at Starbucks now.
Yes.
Like, there really is no, but it is good. We are in, despite the hideousness of so much of the modern world, an area of enlightenment where like you can't have a freak show. Mm-hmm. You can't call it that. And, I loved Peter Dinklage calling out Disney on the dwarves and the proposed remake of Snow White. Oh, yeah, I guess that is wrong. Like it doesn't enter your mind. Like, oh, yeah, I guess that is wrong.
Well, I mean, there's the schools of thought about this it's so, when I rewatched Freaks, I felt I had exactly the same questions and arguments with myself that I had 20 years ago when I watched it. And I don't think that those questions are ever going to be answered. Because I remember reading about John Merrick, the Elephant Man, that he did not have a way to make a living if not for circus sideshows.
Right.
Like he literally could not have
Yes, that's how these people survived.
That's how these people made a living. Yeah. And even though it's horrible that they had to make their living this way, what else are they going to do? And now I think it's more acceptable to sort of live and love and sort of live your life as opposed to being stared at, because we're in a more accepting time now, as opposed to like, we don't put them in a freak show anymore. We just give them jobs.
Right.
Which is great. Because, another one of the sideshow freaks would be a he, she. I saw this in a bunch of the movies. There's like on one side, it's a lady with a pretty hairdo. And on the other side, it's a man with a mustache. And like the way that this person walked, one side walked with swinging hips and the other side walked with this very straightforward gait, like a man. And that's okay now. We have non-binary people in the workplace.
Right. Well, and then, you talk about freaks. That's the weird connection between freaks and Glen or Glenda, which, again, like Glen or Glenda, and the best description of Glen or Glenda is Scott Alexander's, which is, it's a different movie every 10 minutes.
That's correct.
But it is, for 1954, a plea for understanding for transvestites and non-binary people. It's like,
yes. And it's also
decades ahead of its time.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, even if it's a terrible movie.
Right.
And I'll say, let me caveat that by saying everybody that I talk to about Glen or Glenda has a different opinion about it. People genuinely think it's a good movie and people genuinely think it's a terrible movie. And like, I know what I think, but it's not that important. I'm glad you like it if you like it.
Well, yeah, I really like it. it's not a good movie.
Yeah, but I mean, some people think it is.
Well, it's
and
like,
I don't agree.
That's our conversation about Plan 9. It's like, no, he's not an artist.
Well, after we had our conversation about
these
Plan
are
9,
enjoyable. These are enjoyable movies. Anyway,
Yes.
I passionately love King Kong versus Godzilla, the original. It's not a great movie. It's not, but I enjoy it. It's like you can like stuff that's not great. That's okay.
Oh, Dana, I'm in the middle of trying really hard to write about that, and I'm not succeeding. I'm trying to write about
food. It's like.
It's not this to me. It's not the same thing as liking Cheetos, because you can no aesthetic assessment of Cheetos is that they're good, and when you're eating them, they don't feel good for you. But
I've always been enamored of just the concept of Funyuns. That some guy went into his boss at a snack company and said, "You know what's fun? Onions."
I'm just picturing somebody writing on a whiteboard, fun plus onions, and the whole board goes, ooh.
You're hired.
Green light all the way. Yes. I'm trying to write about this movie, Girl in Gold Boots, which is a Ted Mickles movie. And it is a shitty little movie, but I love it. And I can't figure out why. I don't know why I like it. And I've tried to write about this from 14 different directions, and I can't succeed, but it's not important.
Well, I know why I love King Kong versus Godzilla. So it's like, but
why?
Because I love being a 12-year-old kid sitting on the couch on a Saturday afternoon, and it's raining, so I can't go out, and that's on TV. And I can watch it. And I love, and this is just me personally, I love guys in suits and a blatantly miniature city and a cool sky backdrop. I love the knowing that it's artistry. I love seeing that it's a miniature, and it's like, it just, to me, I just find it something in the way that Tim Burton loves stop motion and loves the sort of tactile kineticism of stop motion. I love War of the Gargantuas. I love knowing that that's a miniature tree that he's hitting him with. And I love that it's two guys in a suit. And you can see by the size of the water droplets that that's a tiny boat. Yes. I just find it kind of aesthetically beautiful. And I can also love a good movie. You can love, I'll use old, I love I Am the Walrus, which is an incredibly well-produced, crazy, multi-layered song, and the Ramones. I can like ELO, and I can like the Ramones. There, to say it's like I can like both. I can.
Yes. I'm less thinking about the Omnivores thing, where you can like a Ramones song, which is 2 chords, or you can like Radiohead, which is 8,000 chords.
Right. That's a better example.
And more thinking about I know that this is stupid and trashy, and that the performances aren't effective, and that the relationship is poorly written, but man, I'm still rooting for these crazy kids to be happy in love. And it's so dumb. It's a go-go dance movie. And yet
sure.
I feel so many things, and I don't know why this bad movie is making me feel things. So,
but that's anyway. I mean, bad movies, look, what defines a bad movie? Here's a movie, Pretty Woman. That movie was taken to the breast of a nation.
It was,
and it's about because they never see her having to go on a date with a guy that looked like Ron Jeremy, which was probably more often the whole thing is that's a bad movie.
Yeah, but
it makes people feel good. The people I think it's whatever, it's just an opinion. It's whatever emotion the movie evokes in you that makes it good or bad. I derive such a warm feeling from War of the Gargantuas that to me it's a good movie because I feel good when I watch it.
Maybe it is that simple.
There are better movies, but they don't make me feel as warm inside, you know. And
Well,
or here's one. Because we were just watching Get Back. Help is not as good as A Hard Day's Night, but I like Help more. Why? Oh,
because I couldn't agree with you more with what you just said. A Hard Day's Night is much more aesthetically sound. It's like in the tradition of Italian neorealism. Like it's doing all this stuff that I can point to as a film critic. Whereas Help is just kind of a mess, a collage of weird crap. And yet it's so much more charming to me.
Yeah.
And that's partly because I don't love the traditions that A Hard Day's Night is invoking, but it's also because I'm much more entertained by Help.
Yeah. It's prettier.
Yeah.
It's got that beautiful mid-60s super color.
Absolutely.
You know, it's like, I would put Help on next to Thunderball. You know, it just has that 60s drenched color and aesthetic. And it's you know, it's fun. I mean, they're funny. They're wonderful. They're charming. There's a reason they were who they were.
So I've started keeping, I used to keep a really detailed journal of all of the movies that I watched and all the books that I read. And then I stopped doing it for a while. And now I'm doing it just very simply with a 1 to 10 rating.
Mm-hmm.
And the movies that I rank at 10s are movies that I like less than movies that I rank 9s. Because the 10 is like an aesthetically perfect movie and it hit all the right beats and it does all these things. But the ones that have some flaws and some rough edges and are maybe too long or too short or, you know, have bad notes in their casting, oh man, I enjoy those movies so much more. And
sure.
Like, I think that's, you know, A Hard Day's Night is technically, I would rate it higher, but in terms of pure enjoyability, I will go back to the 9 every time.
Yeah, I really, I agree with that completely. I mean, there's also been, the story of like, what kills you'll see a low budget, small movie remade with a lavish budget and it's awful because certain things need to be in a certain box. There's the Muppet Show, and then there was the an ABC primetime version of the Muppet Show a couple years ago. And on the ABC primetime version, they painted out the wires, and it wasn't as good.
No.
People want to see the wires. They want to know that it's an illusion that they're seeing.
Oh, that's so tricky. Oh my gosh. Because I thought you were going to make a point about committee art versus, you know, the small group of ragtag makers.
Sure. Well, that's also...
Which is also part of it.
You could also have that argument, with that thing for sure.
Like, yeah, I mean, The Wires is the same thing as seeing two guys in keiju suits and knowing that they're two guys in keiju suits. Like
100%.
Banging at each other.
Yeah, 100%.
Because... I'm trying to think if when I was a kid, because the Muppet Show was on when I was a child, and I'm trying to think if like I knew that they were puppets or I thought that they were something else when I was a kid. And I think I knew they were puppets, but also had this sort of half belief that they had a life inside their puppeting, kind of like Hobbs, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a level of... I mean, I look at the Avengers movies, the Marvel movies, which really, to me, it's just one movie. It's the same movie. To me, and I know I'm in the minority in that, but to me,
based on film Twitter, you're not.
Well, yeah, it's like the Avengers movies are like porn movies, are like reggae albums, in the sense that you just need one good one and you're fine. And they're all, get one good one. You don't need anything else. And I've told this story. I was telling this, the reason this came up, I was telling the story the other day. Back when there were video stores, on 2020 Video, at 2020 Video in Studio City on Ventura Boulevard, I was in there one day, and they used to have the adult section of the store that had those Western doors, and they would create like shame.
Noisy Western doors for a porn section. That's amazing. I love it.
And I was in there one day, and Jeff Conaway from Taxi came out of that section with a stack, like tucked under his chin, fully extended arms. He was like the chef at the Sesame Street. 11 porno videotapes. And he fell down the stairs. And I was like, you don't need 11. You don't. Nobody needs 11.
Same thing.
Just get one good. Find a good one, and you're good. You're not watching it more than 11 minutes. And that's what I felt. But like, just because you can do anything, just because you can show anything, it doesn't mean you have to,
Yes.
It doesn't mean I really liked the last Spider-Man movie with all three of them.
Okay.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It was charming. I like the nostalgia. I like seeing all that. My daughter loved it, so I also enjoyed it because she was loving it. But I thought it was wonderful. Except when it's clearly CG, and then I just check out because there's no there's no leaning forward. Like I like to know that a stunt is a stunt because you want to know that if this goes south, there are consequences.
Well, I mean, that's why 70s stunts are the best stunts because, these guys that was the Wild West.
Yeah. Well, if you look at, Bond movies, which were in the 70s defined by their stunts, like that opening shot of The Spy Who Loved Me where he skis off the mountain and you don't know what's going to happen, everybody leans forward.
Yeah. And I think that's why, for the record, I think that's why Fury Road was such a giant splash because it really felt like people were falling on the hoods of cars and like breaking their bones maybe.
Yeah. By the way, that movie.
Oh, yeah. It's tremendous.
Yeah.
And it's also, I just love, one of the things I love about it is that structurally it's like, okay, what if we do this for an hour and then we just do it backwards for the last.
That turn at the end of Fury Road was jaw-dropping. Let's just go back.
Let's just do it again.
And they sold it. I was like, God damn it.
Yeah. It was wonderful for me because I'm very interested in films that are not linear, let's say.
Sure.
And that film is the absolute definition of linear, and it's still brilliant because it is literally straight one road for the whole damn movie. But
it's amazing.
So
it's
good.
It's an astounding movie. Here's another example of that. That's a dilemma for people. The 1933 King Kong and the 2005 King Kong.
I have a lot to say about this actually, because when I saw the 2005, you said 5 or 3? 5. When I saw the 2005 King Kong,
there was a 2003 King Kong.
I thought this is good. It's a little bloated, but it felt like what it was, which is a guy trying to do something other than the thing he's been doing for the past 15 years. And so it was like, this little step outside of what he had been. I understand how that is when you're so focused on this one project for so long that you're like, okay, what else can I even do? There's a kiss in it that I find unforgettable.
Adrian Brody and Naomi Watts.
It felt like someone had taken the balloon of the 1933 King Kong and just blown a bunch of hot air into it. And that's good because there are effects in the 33 King Kong that simply don't hold up anymore. But there are aspects of it that are still so wondrous that to redo them is to, it's to show people en masse that movie making is a cynical enterprise. That you always are going to want the thing that's bigger and better as opposed to, you're always going to want the thing that's bigger as opposed to the thing that's better. You're going to want to remake a movie that if it's been 20 years because kids aren't going to watch a 20-year-old movie. That's so cynical to me. And maybe it means that we don't get better or daffier remakes. I don't know. It's a trade-off and I have trouble with it. But it also brings us back to Nightmare Alley because one of the things that I observed when I turned on Nightmare Alley was that a lot of money was thrown at the screen in that movie. A lot. And I don't think that's necessarily true for the 47 one, although I understand it was an A-list picture. Like it wasn't.
Yeah, it was a tight budget because Daryl Zanuck didn't like that his star was playing such an unsympathetic character, and in the end thought that that would affect the box office. He was right, but it was also hampered by the fact that the minute it started to perform not great, he pulled it. So it was hampered by that. But no, that's not a story that's going to be embraced by everybody. It's a dark story about a piece of shit who has his comeuppance, and so it's not going to be The Shape of Water, which is in the end positive and life affirming and about love.
Yeah, but I mean, like The Godfather is about a piece of shit. There are lots of movies about pieces of shit that are beloved and that make money.
True. I was just, true. I would say that by and large, and the Godfather is a really brilliant example of where I'm wrong, but no, it's true. But I don't have a problem with it. By and large, I think people tend to embrace movies that make them feel good. Or affirm, like the Titanic at the end of the day is about love. Yeah. And even though it's a tragedy, it's about love.
I feel that Titanic was successful because I thought about this a few years ago.
There was plenty of room on that door for two people. I'm just going to say it.
Yes, there was. Yes, you're so right. Especially a little guy like DiCaprio. Come on, he was like
60 pounds.
But I thought about this a few years ago when I was thinking about how to structure a love story, and I ended up using it in my first novel. Was like the ideal way to set up a romance that people are going to remember forever is if one person dies. And that was true in Titanic. It was certainly true in my book. Like the best way to do it is to have that happen. And then the Notebook kind of flipped that whole script and made them end up together instead of ending up apart. But the ending up apart is what people love. Like Brokeback Mountain, they want to have their hearts broken by this thing. And if they don't, then they're going to watch a Meg Ryan movie.
Right.
So
that is true.
I don't remember where I was going with this.
Well, you're comparing it to, I was comparing Nightmare Alley to The Shape of Water. That in Nightmare Alley, there's no redeemable characters whatsoever. Really.
True. Well, it's Molly, but yeah.
Yeah, Molly. But she's not celebrated. She's just kind of there.
She is just kind of there.
And but that's also true in The Godfather, even though, Kay, maybe.
Yeah, but I mean, I think you're right to say that these are different kinds of movies. I mean, for even despite how it looks now, The Godfather was not a prestige picture the way that Nightmare Alley is. And
right.
It's also like, I feel like both movies, it was really strange to me. And as I said, I had no idea what you wanted to talk about with these movies. So I was watching them and I was just trying to pay attention to my reactions to them. And I observed that even though I loved the story of both of these movies, there were these long stretches where I was bored and just nothing. Both movies had this like extreme flatness in places. And certainly Del Toro's is much too long, but also for both of them, I thought, this is a story with such big, like Greek kind of tragedy going on. And there's so many parts where I'm just like, come on, make something happen,
Right.
Take it back to Electra.
Yeah.
Do something in the tent.
Yeah. I don't know if you would be allowed to make a 90-minute movie.
Well, fair enough.
Yeah. It's like my daughter really wants to see Batman. It's 3 hours long. Matt Reeves is brilliant. I mean, he's great. I love Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. I loved his remake of Let the Right One In.
Could you get her a screener so you could like pause it from time to time?
Screeners.
What did you think of Nightmare Alley?
I liked it, because I'm not on film Twitter, and I'm not, I'm like, I don't care that much. I like the setting. I like Carnival movies. It's like, would I watch it again? I'd put it on while I'm doing something else. I'm glad that it got made. I love that Guillermo del Toro works and that he makes movies about stuff that I like and I'm interested in.
Mm.
It's a bummer of a story. And it was super violent. It was like, I didn't understand the need for some of that violence. But you know, it was like, yeah, it was fine. That was it was 100% fine.
I'm shocked that it got a Best Picture nod, but you know,
some
years are,
No, I'm surprised. I'm surprised too.
Some years are better than others, I guess.
Has it done well financially? Do you know?
No, it's been a flop.
Yeah. It's not a movie people want to see. I mean, then again, who would have thought that a love story between a chick and the creature from the Black Lagoon would have done as well as it did? So who's to say?
Who's to say is really how the movie industry works, and I know that, but it's also this one I could have told you would be a flop just because it's so, like I said, it's so flat in between, and maybe by the time, because I knew the story, the movie didn't compel me as much as it compelled the Academy voters, but I just felt like, you know, the moves were so long in coming that they felt telegraphed. You know, is there also an element of like, why did it get a nomination? Because Warner Brothers needs to get a nomination. Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
we can't snub Warner Brothers. They'll kill us. It's true. I'm not disagreeing with you. Yeah. I just, you know, most of the people that I talk to about movies, they want to talk about the Oscars, and I'm like, this is meaningless. It has no bearing whatsoever on the Jack
state
Warner,
of film
it's
today.
as important as a yard sale.
Did he say that really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. That's so correct.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. I mean, who thought, it doesn't, I have no interest. I'm trying to think of the last movie I saw, like a major movie I was like, that was great.
Mm-hmm.
It might have been Fury Road. Like the last, I mean, obviously there's been COVID, so people have been, you know.
But no, I'm just looking at my list. Like most of the good stuff that I've seen has been streaming. And I'm also like, I'm working on, working through some TV shows from the early 2000s. So like I watched Community, and I finished that up this month and that kind of thing. Night Moves. That was
the Gene Hackman
one.
Oh yeah, that's great.
I watched that last month. That movie's amazing.
Yeah, that movie's great. I just saw Whiplash, which I hadn't seen, which I enjoyed.
I thought that was a superhero movie.
No, J.K. Simmons is a cruel jazz instructor, and
oh sweet,
who meets he meets a kid. J.K. Simmons is a flying asshole in this movie, and he meets a guy with real talent, like a Charlie Parker level talent. The kid's a drummer, but he realizes that, you know, Charlie Parker only became Charlie Parker because a band leader threw a cymbal at him one day and humiliated him. And he went home and he tried harder. And this guy, he has to like break this guy and destroy him for him to come out of his cocoon. And that's the story. But it's just well acted, and it's a small story, and it's
sure. Yeah.
really,
I mean,
I was compelled. Like, normally, even if the movie's bad, once I start it, I kind of have to see where they go with the story, unless I, you know.
Oh man. So I told you, I think I've only walked out of 2 movies in my whole life. And one of them was Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes.
You're a better man than I am, Kathy.
Well, let me finish the story. So it was at the time I was working for a movie theater. So I got to watch whatever I wanted for free. And so the fact that I walked out was largely because it was free and I knew I could go back. And so I did one day. I really wanted to know, like, how could this train wreck possibly end? I did end up watching the whole thing once. And I'm glad I did, because I think that's one of the worst endings I've ever seen in my whole life. But
it's
still
everything. But again, every note of that movie is a clam. You know, a clam is a bad note, and like, you know, it's like, everything is wrong. Everything is misfired.
Oh yeah,
casting, it's all wrong. Everything is wrong.
I thought of one. Pain and Gain, Michael Bay's Pain and Gain. I fucking loved that movie.
Pain, and you never heard of it.
Oh my gosh. It's about these gym rats who pull a heist, and they end up fucking it up so badly that they murder a couple of people. And it's a true story of these idiots in Miami who tried to, and
you didn't have to say Miami. That's implied.
I know. I mean, it's like Michael Bay's most perfect project because it's about glamorous idiots in Miami, some of whom are rich and some of whom are jacked, and like what happens when they meet. It's like after I saw it, I was like,
those are the two kinds of people you can have.
In
you
Miami,
can be rich or you can be jacked.
Like this movie should be playing on a loop in every hotel lobby in Miami because it's like a patron saint movie for Miami.
Sure,
and Michael Bay.
It's the Miamiest movie we could make.
It is, and Michael Bay being the Miamiest director we have, it's like, oh man, it's great, and it very much to me proves that Michael Bay, even though he is a capitalist and a dick, has a genuine style as a filmmaker. He has content that he's interested in. He has like a way of, he has an eye. He just has terrible taste.
Right.
And this movie proves that, like that he knows what he's doing. He's just like, his taste is awful.
Yeah. Here's a movie I saw this year, and then I'll let you go. Here's a movie I saw this year that I went, wow, I'm glad that got made. That was great. Barb and Star go to Vista Del Mar.
You liked that? I turned it off.
I loved it. I mean, I know half the people in it.
Sure.
But it was like the level of stupidity, intentional stupidity. That's my kind of comedy.
I mean, I liked the bit. I just felt like I didn't want to watch a whole movie of the bit.
Yeah. No, that's understandable. I can watch Kristen Wiig all day. And,
she's great.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
And no, I just, but you know, that's that I like that, you know, that's an inside shot. That's an inside straight kind of, not everybody's going to love that movie, and they made it anyway.
I think that's right.
Same with Ed Wood. Not everybody's going to love this movie, but they made it anyway.
Well, I mean, I don't know this, but I'm curious if you think that comedy does that more often than drama.
It depends on the type of comedy. I mean, you can, you know, there's, you know, the standard genre of slobs versus the snobs. That's always going to do well. But now, and this is another topic, but we were talking about comedians in movies that, you know, it's like, who are the comedians in movies now? Ryan Reynolds?
Yeah.
You know, it's like, what happened to, we used to have Bill Murray, Steve Martin, John Candy, John Belushi. And now they all have to be muscular, and like, you know, Chris Pratt, Ryan Reynolds. Those are comedy movies now. You know,
I feel like Chris
you have
Pratt,
to be on the cover of Men's Fitness to be a comedian now.
I feel like Chris Pratt, though, like deliberately changed genres. Like he didn't want to do comedy anymore, it seemed like.
No, I think, I'm assuming Kumail's doing the same thing. No, I do. I mean, like, you can't be a comedian and look like that.
I also think the way that female comedians have kind of become viable commercially has changed the landscape of this a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Bridesmaids was one of the best comedies in the past 20 years.
Yeah. Also, and I've been thinking about this a lot, I don't think that Breaking Bad would have been as good, and I don't think that Bryan Cranston would have been so talented if he hadn't been a comedian and even been a physical comedian, because it seemed like he knew his instrument so well. In a way that maybe dramatic actors don't necessarily get to know their instrument that well. And so that makes me feel like for a lot of comic actors, they want to do this thing where they're in prestige streaming instead of being
I get
Bill
it.
Murray.
Yeah. You're sending people off to watch a movie. What should they watch? Gold. What was it? The Girl in the Gold Boots?
I cannot recommend Girl in Gold Boots. It's so stupid. It's on Tubi, so it's free. Yeah, I guess Girl in Gold Boots. Let's go with that. Yeah.
All right.
Sure. It's bad.
The Girl in Gold Boots. I'm going to watch it. Katharine Holt, you can get her book, The Midnight Movie Monographs, Plan 9 from Outer Space. It's on Amazon. Can they get it?
It is on Amazon. You can also buy it directly from me. And a lot of you did from the last time I was on this show. Thank you very much.
Where can they go if they didn't? Tell them again.
Amazon.com, pspublishing.co.uk, directly to me. You can email me. My email address is a lot of places on the web. Go to kcoldiron.com and go from there.
kcoldiron.com. That's easy. kcoldiron.com. The book is great. Always a pleasure to talk to you. She is great. We'll do it again. We'll do it again soon. This was terrific. Thank you so much.
Other podcasts reach for the sky. Dana Goldbound. We barely
This has been the Dana Gould Hour, brought to you by the Internet. Music by Andy Paley, with Jake Posner behind the board. Produced by Jeff Fox. Graphic design and web production by Spencer Hunt and Segan Friend. Sound editing and post-production by Jalinda Palmer and Joe Napolitano. Hey, if you like the show, why don't you drop us a line at show@danagould.com. Tom Kenny speaking.
I'm a DJ, I'm a DJ, I'm a person, I'm a person, I'm a singer, I love to sing and DJ. Boom! Peace out! You want me? Peace out!